nice tunes here.
The work session call at City Council meeting 7:31.
I call to order this City of Grand Haven special work session. It is August 6th. We survived another Coast Guard Festival week. What a fun time. We have quite a few items on our work session agenda this evening. Whoops, and I need to have Linda call the roll first.
Vanessa?
Here.
Ruger?
Here.
Scott is absent at the moment. Fritz?
Here.
And Michaela.
I'm here. All righty. As I said, there's several items on our work session agenda this evening. We have a full plate. First item, Pat will report on our affordable housing task force that we had several meetings. These are our presentations coming forward.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce those who are present, who are part of the Affordable Housing Task Force, starting with Mayor McCaleb. Also, I see Mike Dora is here. Should probably put my glasses on. Make sure, yeah, he's out there. Ryan Patrick, Amanda Klein, and that's it, who are in the room. The City Council, of course, directed that we begin investigating what affordable housing opportunities the city might have in Haven, or affordable place or for people to live, or at least present a good variety of housing options. Perhaps that was in recognition of the apparent trend that that high interest in short-term rentals and the conversion of some properties to short-term rentals in some of our neighborhoods, and also just a very robust and lucrative housing market, and it seems that pricing is just continuing to go up, coupled with consistent and persistent comments from our manufacturing community that their employees are having a hard time finding local housing, that they're having to move to other places, and transportation is becoming an issue. And so City Council just wanted to find out what could be done, what sorts of things could we do if we wanted to have an impact on that dynamic, on the cost of housing. I don't think it's something that the city could solve on its own, so we called together a couple of planning commission members, which were Mike, who I already introduced, and Steve Skodak, two council members, Jerry and Denny. Tom Reinsma just volunteered as an at-large member, and he has been active in the Salvation Army and other housing efforts for a long time around Grand Haven, and just has a lot of background in that. Ryan Kilpatrick, who is the director of Ottawa Housing First, or Housing Next, I'm sorry. And Jennifer Holland, of course, is our community development manager. Rhonda Klein, the director of neighborhood housing services here, and myself. Well, those are the people. Ashley did a really nice job with our PowerPoint here, so I want to take full advantage of the graphics here. Thank you, Ashley. So she's an unofficial member of the committee for working so hard on this PowerPoint presentation. But how can we clearly define steps the city might take to become a catalyst, not an obstacle, to more housing options for all Grand Haven residents? As that's somewhat of an impactful statement, that we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And perhaps if we're not talking about it, and I actively trying to intentionally identify what those obstacles are, maybe we are one of those obstacles. So I think even talking about it is an important step. We started meeting last January, had meetings in January, February, March, April, and then May and June we sort of were firming things up. I won't go into the detail of what we did at each meeting, but we felt that housing rates in Ottawa County are rising faster than people's ability to pay. We looked at the income statistics and housing cost statistics, and everybody agreed that it was clear that one was rising more quickly than the other. So rather than the problem being on a trajectory where it might self-correct at some point, it doesn't look like that's likely to happen on its own. We agreed on three basic ideals as we got into things. Everyone who works in Grand Haven should be able to live in Grand Haven. We all felt that was a good ideal to hold to. Grand Haven should have a variety of housing options, was the second ideal. And thirdly, those who live in Grand Haven should be able to remain in Grand Haven as they age. So if cost is becoming a factor, making people move out as their income isn't able to keep up with the cost of housing. We thought that was probably a bad thing, and how could we maybe influence more availability of housing for people as they age. And we came up with 10 recommendations, and I will run through those very quickly. Number one, utilization of financial incentives that can be accessed for projects, and we did some research. Ryan Kilpatrick was very helpful due to his past life as a state employee with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. He has a really good handle on the various tools that are available to us, and he's also in a very good position right now to help us access those tools if we move forward, and this becomes one of the points of your affordable housing direction that you maybe will take after tonight's presentation. Secondly, look at those sites around town that might be good sites for new housing investment, different housing investment, and set up a dialogue with the owners of those sites and developers who have an interest in that type of development to see if we can get some projects and programs going. We thought the city could likely take a more active role. We have all the data and information about all these different properties around town, and we frequently engage in conversations among elected officials and appointed officials and citizens about, hey, what about this property or that property? You know, it sort of gets discussed, but we never really move on it. So does city council want to direct staff to become more of an active participant in looking at those sites and marrying them up, matching developers and properties? The next one is perhaps support higher density development in select districts. Obviously needs more definition, but we danced around that one quite a bit. We had some more direct recommendations that we sort of watered down and said, well, let the Planning Commission talk about which districts those are and where higher density would be appropriate, and ultimately the city council make those decisions. We would just say that it should be looked at. Next, establish a public acquisition fund to potentially assist in land assembly, you know, maybe working with our partners at the Grand Haven Area Community Foundation. And closely related is the fifth recommendation, to develop a fund for private resources, to focus private resources at the Community Foundation, that we get that two-track approach going, try to get some public money and some private money, so that as we identify sites, start removing obstacles. Often one of those obstacles is numbers. If somebody can't afford to put together the numbers to make a project affordable, perhaps we get private and public resources brought to bear to make that more likely to happen, maybe bridge small gaps that we might identify. Number 6, regional support for housing staff. That would be Rhonda and our neighborhood housing services. We want to continue working with our neighbors to try to make housing services more universally provided throughout the Tri-Cities, not just the city of Grand Haven. Next is take this plan, if city council does decide to adopt it or something like it, and take it and share it with our neighbors. So we would go on the road with this presentation and try to encourage our neighbors to do similar things. Number 8, and this is a really big one, is pursue a regional housing authority. That might bring that whole intergovernmental relationship picture into much clearer focus by actually establishing a regional authority made up of representatives from each local municipality and perhaps others to be a local regional housing authority and pursue these things on a more broad basis rather than just the city of Grand Haven with our department and our 10 recommendations. Develop these higher density housing opportunities with readily available public and alternative transportation modes. Seems like a lot of the discussion, those two dynamics are intertwined, you know, people's ability to find affordable housing and ability to find affordable transportation. And perhaps if you can fix one and also fix the other. So we really think that wherever we work to cluster more, or not necessarily cluster, even spread housing opportunities, make sure that transportation is available to serve those areas. You know, we don't want to start building standalone or individual affordable housing developments where people can't afford transportation to get to and from wherever those get located. So we thought it was important to keep those in mind. And finally, this would be Jennifer's bailiwick, a rewrite of the zoning ordinance with a specific attention to affordable best practices in the housing area. We gave a list. There's an appendix in the report to list out what some of those things are. We didn't want to be too directed and telling the Planning Commission what we thought those things should be, but we did provide a list of ideas, things we did talk about as possible things that are in our zoning ordinance currently that could be perceived as obstacles. So ultimately, we would recommend from the task force that we implement measures that promote affordable housing developments that will benefit the city as a whole. Considering those recommendations, you would be making Grand Haven a place not only to work, but to play and stay. So that is the extent of that presentation. Ready for questions or recommendations if you wanted to make some tweaks, but I would really be excited to come back with this list of recommendations and present it to City Council as a recommended blueprint for what your staff would be working on going forward.
Well, I'd like to make some comments about, the work that we did. This is a problem not just in Grand Haven. It's a problem, I think, all up and down the lakeshore. It's, when you have a very desirable place to live, people want to live here, they're bidding up houses rather than bidding them down. And and it's expensive to build in the environment that we live in right now. So it's a difficult thing to solve. And it's a good sign that it's difficult is nobody seems to be doing a very good job of solving it. So, but we're willing to tackle this. There's ways to do it. There's ways that it's definitely necessary, even as we're talking to our Coast Guard personnel that recently transferred into Grand Haven, is that they're living in Hudsonville, they're living in Coopersville, they're not necessarily living here because of the lack of availability of housing and the cost. So it's not only our folks that work in our local factories, but it's even our Coast Guard personnel that have difficulty finding a place to live. So, but these kind of things is things that we need to look at to see, what would be best, and how do we tackle these issues? How can we build in, affordability into how we want to build? In previous years, we've had, more duplexes in the city, and then that. And one of the questions is, do we want to go back to allowability of more duplexes? But a lot of things come along with that, including parking, and because everybody brings their car or two cars. So it's a difficult situation to find solutions for. But I think what we did as a task force, things that we came up with, I think were viable. Transportation is a big part of that. Not everybody can live in Grand Haven. We're just 6 square miles, and we have a lot of manufacturing, and those manufacturing plants, take a lot of people. Not everybody can live here. So transportation for those that, or maybe not everybody wants to live here. They have family and friends not that far away, 15 to 20 miles away. And so then transportation becomes much more important to folks that enjoy living where they're living, but the jobs are available here in our community. So there's many facets to this, many possibilities. It's going to take a cooperative effort between all of our agencies and Planning Commission and the state to come up with some viable solutions, and some developers that see the possibility that, hey, we would try something, and with the help of the state also to make that a possibility. So I think we hit a lot of high points. We understand the problems, and we think we potentially have some ways to address the issue. So I think we did a good job. Anybody else?
I was on that committee too, and we had a good committee there. I think we had 2 people from the Planning Commission and others that were on. That's some staff members, and we battled that topic back and forth, and I think we came up with a pretty good solution for it. But again, it's going to have to be a partnership. Like Jerry said, we're 6 square miles, and it's right now a lot of people want to live in Grand Haven, and we just don't have a lot of land available. So it's going to take a corporate, a combination the township and Grand Haven and Spring Lake Township to come up with affordable housing for this area. It just can't be Grand Haven. We just don't have enough space here. So it just seems like this town is growing fast, and every spot right now is being swallowed up. So it's a hard topic to discuss, even with us, our committee. We had some tough subjects came up, and we battled them back and forth. But together, I think we came up with a solution that we can deal with it. But it's got to be a partnership with other communities, or it just won't work.
You done? I just want to say thank you to the task force for all their hard work and everybody. It's a lot of input. And looking over the 10 recommendations that you have here, and that I have to agree, it's a lot. You guys did a very, very good job. You're right. We do need to share with our neighbors. It's not just a Grand Haven, City Grand Haven problem. We have, if you looked and watched a Grand Rapids Press paper, Grand Rapids is having a housing problem also up there for affordable housing. So it's not just one location here. It's all over the place. It's just, we need to take a look at it. And I think all the points that you laid out here is a very good way for us to follow through with. I appreciate, like I said, I really appreciate all your hard work. It's not easy to figure all this out, and by having all these minds together and working on it, you guys came up with a very good plan. So I want to say thank you very much.
You know, if I can add one more comment, and that part of the issue that we're dealing with too is because of short-term rentals. As the houses are being bought up by folks that can afford to buy them and fix them up, put them on the market for a week at a time and make big bucks over a weekend or over a week. This is the kind of housing that people could afford to either to buy or to, as you know, young people that are looking to rent with friends, they could get 2, 3, 4 people into some of these houses, the smaller ones or the bigger ones, and they're off the market because they've been bought up as short-term rentals. And this is one of the things that why we have a concern about the proliferation of short-term rentals, because it takes a lot of good living space right out of the market, because the profit margin on those things is huge. So it's very profitable to buy them and rent them out for several $1,000s a week. So I think that was another issue, which I forgot the first time around. So.
Well, yeah, I want to say exactly what Mike said. Thank you to the committee for all of your hard work. This is, I've said before, is an area that's very passionate for me personally, having worked with Habitat for Humanity for a number of years. And while I possibly would have liked a little more aggressive approach on a few things, I think the beauty of a committee is the balancing effect of the different voices in that committee. And so I want to compliment the mayor and Denny for their work, and the rest of the task force for coming up with some good solutions. I see some great short-term, long-term solutions in here, a good mix of both. In particular, I want to compliment over and over again in here the approach that this is more than just the city of Grand Haven. When I read Grand Haven in the writing here, I immediately put Grand Haven and Grand Haven Township right behind that. And we've got a township person here in the audience today who's listening in and nodding his head, so it's great to see that. And I look forward to, we all look forward to more partnerships as we address this issue. Crazy timing of events, but my wife and I are in the process of doing some different financing things. We bought our house 2 years ago, and in 2 years' time, we just had it appraised. It went up in value $100,000. That's insane to have that happen. We're very fortunate, and many of us who own homes are very fortunate to be able to have that. But I realize in that blessing that we have that there are many people that just drop right out of the market where it's not even a possibility. So I'm glad to see this, and I look forward to it moving forward. I think bravo to all parties. Good job.
All right, I was also with Josh, and we kind of brought this issue forward, and then the committee ran with it, and again, everybody did hard work, and it's a difficult problem. The focus here appears to be mostly on increasing density. That's going to be something that's a little bit of a cultural shift for our people in this community. And a lot of the recommendations here seem to be focused on certain areas. I think maybe we need to broaden our focus and make sure that solutions we have are citywide, not just certain neighborhoods. But there will probably be opportunities for specific developments in specific places. First of all, I'd like to say I like the 3 goals. Everyone who works in Grand Haven should be able to live in Grand Haven. My kids moved away. They couldn't afford to live here. They might be able to come back now, but they couldn't for a long time. We should have a variety of housing options. We do, to a point, and as Jerry alluded, and as Josh alluded, values are high. And so it's difficult to crack that market. And those who live in Grand Haven should be able to age here, absolutely. So those are great goals. I would like to see a little more of the background behind how the financial incentives and tools can work and how we can actually maintain affordable housing. Because once it's in the marketplace, you have to keep it from exploding with huge reassessments and such. And I think that as density goes up, particularly in certain neighborhoods, the older neighborhoods or the lakes or the riverside neighborhoods, there'll be more and more pressure to go to more seasonal rentals, more of the high profit type housing, because otherwise you're asking property owners to forego that. We've already done that in our zoning ordinance to a point. So I think that there's some enforcement or some detail or some mechanism there that has to be spelled out. And we have just, a list of items here that are kind of talking points or starting points. And yes, we should probably, this should be a regional effort. However, the city can do what it can do within the city. So we can lead by example. We can say this is important and we're willing to change our community and the character, at least to a point, to accommodate this. And hold that as an example to our neighboring communities and say this is not just our problem. We have to start here with what we can do here. So we'll have more urban solutions, whereas the townships will have more suburban solutions or ex-urban solutions, but we will have solutions which are specifically urban and more the density and the way they operate, the type of transportation available will be different from what you see in the townships, at least to a point. So yes, it's a widespread problem. We need to, I don't know, I assume that the vacancy rates throughout the city were explored and that there was a lot of detail like that that wasn't included in this. So I'm assuming that we know just how short of housing we actually are, or if it was strictly a matter of cost. I don't know how many empty units we have, but presumably there's some detail beyond this presentation that we can all examine. So there's a lot here, and it's a difficult problem, as has been said, and we need to carefully look at how we're going to transform our community to a higher density, lower housing cost type of community. I think it needs to be broadly based. There's a lot of stuff in here about zoning barriers and potential zoning amendments, which I guess are intended to be ideas or talking points, not necessarily edicts, but they appear to be focused on certain parts of town. And I think those should be broadly based. Maybe we need to go back and open our master plan and say that our single family residential neighborhoods need to be more tolerant of higher density or a different mix of housing. Maybe we need to look at our medium density residential districts and say that these also have to have some new parameters. Whether we need to completely rewrite a zoning ordinance or simply go into our schedule of regulations and make some changes, I think that would probably cover a lot of this. I don't know, unless there's other reasons for a complete zoning ordinance rewrite. That would be a costly and long-term effort. But maybe a schedule of regulations is something where we can start with, say, just some adjustments, and maybe, like, say, open our master plan and say, here's what we mean by single-family residential, here's what we mean by a higher density, taller buildings or closer buildings or less yard. Because I think that really does speak to the character of the community. We've had a lot of our community with larger lots, spaced out housing, really a setting which is more small town, almost village-like in a sense, and that's going to transform, particularly with this approach. If we try to have more units and have them be more affordable units, we're going to have to look at the build out. We're gonna have to look at the implications across town, not just certain neighborhoods, not just certain sites, but how's this whole town going to accommodate affordable housing and what we want to be going forward. We certainly want to address these goals because they're noble goals. And we have to do it in a way that is amenable to the people of Grand Haven. So I think this plan or this presentation is a good starting point. I think that there's detail here to be developed. As Josh said, there's short-term, long-term stuff here. I think a lot of it is more long-term than short-term. And I think that we still have to go back to the idea that property values, housing costs are likely to go up, and that whatever you put in place now is going to change over time, and how you're going to either regulate or control that, or if you're just hoping that having plenty of housing out there will hold pricing down. It's a good start, talking point. I don't really have specific answers to these, and I've not had a lot of time to study this. I just basically seen this over the weekend, but I think when Josh and I first brought this up, we knew kind of where this would be going. So, yeah, there's more work to be done, but we have something at least to start with. We have an outline here.
Well, I think that is true. That is, that was the purpose, I think, of our committee, was to look at a basic outline about what things are possible. And it is true that, we're a built-out city. We don't have a lot, if any, vacant, don't have a whole lot of vacant space out there. And it is a decision that we have to make as a community, is do we want to stick with, 50-foot lots, or are 44-foot lots acceptable? And how does that change the character of our community? And I think those are a lot of questions that need to be answered by a larger group than our small committee. So I think it was more looking at possibilities, setting some goals, and then, working toward those. But as far as statistics, Rhonda, I think, had quite a few statistics as far as what's available and the costs and the price points and income levels as to, what kind of issues we were looking at. So I think Rhonda has, if you're looking for statistics, has statistics that she could share with you. So, but I think we did what we set out to do, is look at some possibilities that need to be fleshed out over time. And that's, I think we fulfilled that obligation. So I don't know, Pat, if you had any other comments or.
Well, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have worked on this, and I think that a lot was discussed up there. And one thing that wasn't necessarily in the report is, how do we encourage our neighbors to get on board? And one is just leadership by example. I don't know that this is being discussed at any other public agenda this week in our county. And the fact that you're talking about it and if you do adopt it, I would plan on putting this on the next agenda for adoption so that I can start working on some of these things. And that in itself is a very strong declaration that we intend to do something, and that we're really committed. And then other partners will come along and come on board and say, well, we are too. We'd like to follow up on that. And let's, with Housing Next, they'd, I think, have some excitement there that, well, let's begin to unearth some possible projects and potential ideas that have been in the hopper that Ryan's been working on. And I think it's important that you're talking about it and considering adopting this plan. So I will put it on the agenda for August 20th. And if you do approve it, then we'll start prioritizing and dispatching Jennifer and Rhonda and myself and others to actually start bringing things forward to you that will put meat on these bones and actually have some meaningful progress. And you should hold us to it. This time next year we should be able to look back and see a couple of accomplishments in this area, not just this plan sitting on our shelf collecting dust, as we often say. I think we'll bring it to life.
All right, any other comments, or we move on to our next item? Next item is revised street resurfacing plan. And we'll ask Derek Gatos, our DPW director.
Good evening, Your Honor. Derek Gatos, Director of Public Works.
Back in June, brought forth the council a resurfacing list of streets. The council asked me to put those in priority. So we spent some time this summer, Todd Brand, our streets crew leader, and Matt Wade, myself, and prioritize those and put them in a 5-year plan with an anticipated budget amount that mirrors what we have in our current budget. So the roads that were on the list came from the 2013 Red Ribbon Committee. It was what was left of them, and there's a couple minor roads that we did add that we've noticed since. But anyways, we put it in a priority list here for you tonight. Consider that if we council chooses to fund it at the level that they fund this year's resurfacing, which will occur in the spring of 19. These are the lists. Now, I want to warn, express that this list it'll ebb and flow. Some of these streets will deteriorate faster than others. Some will hold up a little bit better. So we might, every year we would plan looking at what's left and see if any of those need to be switched or altered. Or there might be one that's not on the list that has to go in front of these. So this is our crystal ball at the moment, and all things being equal, which they're not. Here we are. So.
Any comments for
So Drake,
Eric?
these streets that you wrote over, now these were the streets that were on the list for 2013, is that what you said?
That's correct.
So you didn't do the whole city, you just did the list, the streets that were on that list?
Yeah, those were the streets that were identified in 2013 that need to be
Right, yeah, and I think things changed since then, yeah, I think things changed. I think I'd encourage you guys to maybe go down every street and then I think that list, that list is 5 years old, and I think things changed a lot since then, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would encourage you, I like the idea of you three getting together and doing that, though. I think that was a great idea. I think that's the way to do it. You get 3 opinions that way, and all 3 of you are familiar with streets, so I think it's a great way to do it. But I don't think you should just limit yourself to the 13 list. I think you need to go on other streets and update that list. Like it's 5 years old, so things, and I think things have changed a lot since then. So I would encourage you to do all the streets, and then come back with us and revamp this one maybe. Maybe it won't have to be. Maybe you can leave it like it is, but personally, I don't think so. But that's my own opinion. But I think I would encourage you guys to run all the streets. And I know you guys are busy, and I know. On regular work days, it's pretty hard to do it because you guys have a busy schedule. But maybe you can get together on a Saturday or something and do them. It takes time, but I think all 3 of you guys getting together and doing it, I think that's a great thing to do.
Are there specific streets that aren't on the list that you?
Well, I can name some, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to give them a list of. I think they need to ride the town. The 3 of them need to get together and decide. But I just don't want to limit them to this list. I think there's a lot more on the list that I just encourage you guys to don't limit yourself to that list.
Yeah, definitely.
If I can throw, I don't want to name particular streets either, but the ones that I see a lot of wear and tear are streets around schools and streets around a hospital, or the ones that get or around where the ambulance goes, where the school buses go. I see a lot of wear and tear on those streets where they're traveling. Those heavy vehicles are traveling all the time. So if you could take that into consideration and see how they've fared over the last 5 years, that might point out some issues.
So, are you done?
Yes.
So, didn't he want you to drive up and down the streets and look at them, but somebody has done that. You've got 2017 road pacer ratings. You also have a previous round of pacer ratings, so you have some objective basis to compare road conditions then, road conditions a year ago. And I assume that you took that into account when you did this prioritizations, because it looks like you started with 2s and 1s and worked your way up to 2s and 3s. And there's a lot of 2s on this list. But you do have a lot of objective data on all these roads and every other street in town.
That's correct.
Did you look at those pacer ratings as you were looking at this list for streets not on this list?
So the first list I brought you, it was these streets, but attached to that was a map of all of the pacer rated roads that are 3 through 6, which are the ones we really need to focus on for resurfacing. The 1s and 2s are the ones that need to be reconstructed. So these have been identified 5 years ago as being resurfaced, and they've deteriorated to the point of being, most of them need to be reconstructed. For instance, Doris Court, well, it's a 3 today. By the time we get to it, it's not going to be.
Well, Doris Court listed on here as a pacer rating of 1.
Sorry, 1.
One's pretty bad. That's like a goat path.
So, but maybe it's to buy the time between now and the money till we can get funds to reconstruct those roads. So yeah, I mean, ideally we should be doing a different set of roads, and that list was much larger than this one. We can have costs assembled for those roads. We did not. These were part of our capital improvement plan again, 2013. So we're stuck with. But I agree. We need to relook at all of them and have a plan for every street.
But I guess what I'm getting at is you've got a base of information that was generated by an objective process, the pacer ratings. And if you're saying, if what you just said is the case, you're not really looking at 1s and 2s because you think you need to reconstruct them, and 3s on up are more like a resurfacing candidate. But most of what you got on here are 2s. So are you trying to tell us now that this list is all the wrong roads?
Or all the what?
All the wrong roads for resurfacing, that we should have been just 3s and higher?
Well, that's what they recommend. I'm not saying that's ideal. But we're not necessarily in an ideal situation with our funding. We could spend $2 million a year in resurfacing too.
Oh, yeah, we won't have that kind of money, but, I mean, when we were on, Denny and I were on this Red Ribbon Committee together, when we looked at these roads, it was like, the people that live on these roads are putting up with a pretty miserable road, so we should deal with the worst ones and the ones that could be put in some affordable order. And that was then, and as Denny says, it's a 5-year-old list, and we have a lot more information now. So whether or not we need to open up this list or shuffle the deck on this one, I think that you probably put this list in a decent order. I guess I ought to go look at this very first one on your list, which is Hayes from 168th to Industrial, and that's by far the largest one on your list. And it's a pacer rating of 2. I assume it's because it's an industrial road.
Yeah, that's one of those that has a lot of heavy truck traffic on it. So,
but it's also one where, we need good roads for our industries, but nobody lives on this road. Well, I guess that's the balance you have to strike.
Right.
I don't know, no matter how you shuffle the deck on this, we won't have $2,093,135,000 to put into all this resurfacing for years and years. So it'll take a while to get through this. And then our very next item on our agenda, this Waverly Avenue rehabilitation, doesn't appear to be on this list. And that's one that suddenly ballooned into a big job.
yes.
So, yeah, certainly you can't have a complete list, but I think you got to make up your mind whether resurfacing applies to these roads or they're not really candidates for it, and then present that to us.
So with the current funding in place, our annual budget is $450,000. Is that right?
Correct.
We need more money. I think Jerry artfully brought to light a couple roads that I've brought up previously without naming names, in particular in our school areas. And I would love to see some of those on here. yeah, we just don't have enough money, and that's frustrating. So thank you for the list and the effort you guys put together.
Things change so fast. I mean, over a year time, a road can deteriorate really fast. So I'm just, things change so fast in the winter. So I would just encourage you guys to just take a look at the rest of the roads and get with them all. And you guys can come up with a good priority list. The three of you guys work together good, and what you did on this list is great, but it's just too limited. We need to expand that a little bit, I think, and look further into it. But I think you guys did a great job. Again, the three of you guys, I think, did a great job with this list.
I was chuckling. We've got $2 million, $2.1 million worth of things that we can't afford to do anyway, but we want you to put more on the list. It's hard. Yeah.
It is.
Well, it's all part of asset,
done,
it's
yeah.
all part of the asset management part of the roads that we do is, before we never seal cracked them. By seal cracking, it gives us another 3 or 4 years out of the road before anything else major happens to it. So we've been doing that for the last, 12 years. I've been on here 15, so it's been 12 years now. And it extends the life of the road a little longer, and that's what we need to do is take and try and extend them as long as we possibly can. You have these 1s and 2s, you're absolutely right. When I went to the class and learned on it, you don't put good money into bad roads. I mean, you either, have to redo it all. So you try and do is get the roads that are marginal and get them up to shape, make sure you get them seal cracked, make sure you get them taken care of, so they don't become a 2 and a 3, so you can save your money up to do those 1s and 2s. And I think you got a good list here to get started on it. You're absolutely correct. We don't have the money for it, and it would be nice if we got the state to come back and give us some of that revenue sharing that they promised us many years ago when they went to 6% tax and give us 2 cents back. Last past weekend, I'm sure we generated, I don't know how many millions of dollars for them here with all the people that were here spending money. So but we don't see that coming back to us. It comes off every one of our taxpayers here. But I'm satisfied with what you've been doing, Derek. The list is good. I ride on the town. I take my bike. I got my Corvette. I ride around. I feel bumps all the time. Some roads are better and some are not, but you've been doing a good job of maintaining and trying to get them up to where we can extend the life out of them. That's what we need to do is always try and extend them, try to get another 3 or 4 more years so that we can get to those big projects. We can save the money for them, because if we start sticking money into a big project right away, those other projects that we don't put the $20,000 or $30,000 into today are going to be the $150,000 project. We need to extend them out. So I'm happy with what's going on. You guys got it. You got control. So thank you very much.
Doing what you can. We know that.
We got it.
And we have a limited amount of funds, so we know we only can do what we can pay for. So it's kind of the way it is. Any other comments on this, or we'll move on to?
So what
the
is
waiver?
what is our direction here?
Are you going to?
We want to not do the really worst roads because they need to be reconstructed and focus this on roads that can be actually saved by resurfacing. I mean, we said this list isn't good enough, and then we said this is a great list. I mean, I think we've given him mixed messages.
Well,
I can understand why you would say that a road which is really bad needs to be reconstructed. You don't spread new pavement on it, and that makes sense to me. But that you also don't let it go forever while you're waiting for the money to accumulate, because people have to live on these roads. But I don't think we can say it's a great list and then it's not a great list at the same time. I think we need to give some direction that, okay, let's look at the roads that are suitable for resurfacing and focus on those for the purpose of this project, and not let the list grow and grow and grow beyond our means to pay for it. I mean, you've got about a 5-year plan in terms of the money that you've got available. That $2.1 million is roughly 5 years worth of this budget. If we say that we're going to look for ways to reconstruct the very worst roads and then drop them off the list, then maybe we can put some other roads on it, or maybe we can take into account the fact these prices are going to get inflated over the next 5 years. The road conditions will deteriorate further and require greater work than they require today. So you can expect that even if the list doesn't expand, the price will. So I think that we ought to make up our mind as if we're going to make the recommendation, what we're looking for. And if we're not, then you just say it's a good list, then let him go and do what he can with this. But I don't think we
Well-
can say both.
If you've got $450,000 to spend, I guess if I was looking at this list, I'm thinking this is probably what Derek will do, is look where he can get the biggest bang for his buck. Don't repave a road that you're planning on doing a full reconstruction on in the next few years. I don't know how long some of these, 5 or 6 years go out to like a resurfacing,
Yeah, 3 to 6 years.
so.
And we stretch them,
Okay,
try to
but-
stretch them
Right.
to 10.
But the first thing on your list is this Hayes project, which is $300,000, which is most of 1 year's budget, and it's a resurfacing cost. And it's a PACER rating of 2, and everybody on your staff ranked it as a 1, as being apparently the one that needs most attention. And so is this a resurfacing project, or is this a reconstruction project? And if it's a reconstruction project, we need a plan to tear it all out and reconstruct it.
So our ratings were 1 through 5 because we had determined that this was going to be a 5-year plan, not a 4. So we just rated it if we put it in the first year, the second year, the third year, fourth year, and that's how
Right.
we just average them out. So it was not a PACER rating at all.
No, but you do have a PACER rating of 2.
Correct.
And a minute ago, you told us 1s and 2s really ought to be reconstructed.
Correct.
And then we heard from other members of council that, yeah, we don't want to put good money into bad and put new surface on a bad road when it needs to be reconstructed. And that's the biggest single thing on this list. So does it belong on this list?
Good question. I believe it does. I've ridden the road and think that resurface on that will be more towards the 10 years than the 5. The utilities in that road don't need to be reconstructed. The road itself could. There are other roads in our system that the utilities need to be reconstructed, and we definitely don't want to be resurfacing
Okay,
those.
and that's not reflected in this list as to where you think reconstruction equals new utilities versus just a simple PACER rating.
Right, right. Yes, these roads here are not due for utility replacements. There is another road that's been brought up recently, Grant Street, that should be resurfaced, or we should have a new surface on it. We have utilities in there that we need to reconstruct as well, so. However, we have to stretch and do what we need to do. We have to make streets passable. We just did that on Columbus Avenue on the east side of town, from Beacon to dispel there last year, because
Yeah, and it was exceptionally bad. And I know I encouraged that one to get done as well, just because it'd been so long and so bad. But the other one, and it was going to be years before we could reconstruct it.
So if I could suggest something to the council, maybe I can go through the PACER ratings 3 through 6 roads and come back with cost estimates for all of those, and we can kind of compare them and say, maybe this is the direction we're going to go, or we want to combine those, or let these roads go because they need to be reconstructed, and focus our resurfacing efforts on those other roads.
If I could, I asked Derek to put this together and bring it because you just approved a budget with a big chunk of money for some resurfacing. I thought city council probably wants to know which roads you're going to do with that, so can you update the list? So he went and had all his crew prioritized to give him a little clearer picture to make sure he was thinking on the right page. Now, if there's specific roads that aren't on here that maybe should be, let's hear what they are and bring them forward. But otherwise, let's, continue working the plan, which is to fix these roads that you've
Right.
appropriated money for. And if somebody thinks, and I'm looking at my spreadsheet cuts off over there, but I know the first 5 on there are 2019, is that correct?
Yes, in the spring.
So those first 5 are planned on being done next year, is what you're trying to communicate tonight.
That's correct.
Is that absent any changes, those first 5, Hayes, Howard, Sherman, Doris, and Woodlawn, will be done in 2019, springtime.
They'll be engineered this fall, starting in probably October, maybe in September we'll start.
So between now and then, let's, make sure that those are the 5 we want to do, and if not, let's shoehorn in other ones, and that means one of these is going to fall off the list. But those 5, his crews agreed, are all, well, except who's that one? Matt went off the reservation on one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Todd did on Doris. Matt didn't think Doris, and Todd didn't agree with Woodlawn, but otherwise, these are the ones that scored high. So I think it was just an effort to inform city council that, these are the ones we're planning on putting in the contract documents in a month. But a month's not a long time to go out and try to drive every street in town. And so if there are a couple donkey trails out there that are missing our attention, you know, we need to know about them. And I guess that's great. We're streaming live. If somebody out in the great city of Grand Haven or beyond feels that there's a street we're missing, call Derek, and let him know that ought to be in that top 5.
Okay, if we're gonna name roads, I think Waverly between Spelder and probably Elby, and then Grant Street, probably from maybe the highway all the way to Elby Street again, or Griffin. That's and Grant Street has a lot of spider cracks. That street is really cracked up, but that's the ones I've seen. But I hate to name roads for you guys because I really think that's your job to do. So, but take a look at them, see what you think. I know Grant Street does have to be. I know it's down for a total rebuild. I'm not all sure it needs it. I don't know why that was put on a total rebuild, but it was. So, but I agree. I think it needs to be resurfaced, and I don't think we can wait for a total rebuild to be done before. I think it's going to fall apart before we ever get to a total rebuild on that road. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Derek, I think what I heard from me, that if you can buy us 10 years by resurfacing, then it makes sense to have them on this list. If it's less than 10 years and it's up for debate, then that's another thing that we have to talk about. But I think even without that 10-year rule of thumb, there are going to be streets, we've talked about Grant now a couple times, that even if it needs to be completely reconstructed, we owe it to the residents who live on Grant Street of an explanation of some sort to say, hey, we're not just ignoring you. It needs to be completely redone, and we're looking for funds for it to be redone. But our rule of thumb is if we can't buy 10 years, then we'd rather redo it and do it right. So hang in there with us, something along those lines. I think it's just a matter of communication to the folks who are on the soon-to-be donkey trails. So there you go, my sake.
All right, I think we're good. And I can see now where the ones and the twos, where the ones end and the twos begin. So, because that last number is just kind of a guess. All right, don't go far.
We're going to talk about Donkey Trail next.
All right.
Yes.
One of those donkey trails.
So this is the next agenda. Tonight was Waverly Avenue Rehabilitation over Gidley Bayou. We put some money in the budget this year, $145,000, to do a partial reconstruct to buy us some time. We had it inspected last fall by our engineers, and when I went to get the quote and actually move forward to the engineering after the budget, we did one more verification of what was needed. And so a partial reconstruction was going to do some curbs and gutters, one drainage structure, and then there's just like a mill and fill and make it smooth. All the engineering, wetlands permits, all the background work that needed to is pretty costly. We can do it for the 145, and our engineers, who they were going to be here tonight, unfortunately couldn't attend. They had an emergency. But they said, actually, Derek, your money investing in this partial reconstruct isn't going to do you justice. You should look at 2 options instead, and one is just basically a resurface, just try and make it smooth. Some high-level mill and fill oversight for about a third of what we budgeted. Or they said you should do it all. You should fully reconstruct it with new curbs and gutters all the way, new road bed, and storm structures, which was about 3 times, or over 2 times, almost 3 times what we budgeted. So we're in that predicament. What do? We put a little patch on it, and it'll last us 3 to 6 years. The road surface underneath there is failing, and that's why it is that way. The great thing, though, is this was on our capital improvement plan for full reconstruction, even of the culvert, or even a new bridge section. The inspection of the culvert both times was in great shape. It was put in the 70s, and we couldn't have asked for it to be in any better shape. So our $1.4 million on a capital improvement plan can be wiped away, and we can either do this for $55,000 to resurface it, or we can try and find the money, spend a $425,000 to fully reconstruct it. Resurfacing could take place this fall. Reconstruction would take place in the spring. So the reason why it is that way is the road bed is failing. So my question to the council would be the direction on, do we want to look for the money? Or do we wanna-
Being that we don't have the money anyways, it's, you know, it's the same thing we had with
Right.
for the roads just recently here, we talked about. But your suggestion is to go 3 to 6 years, and we don't have, go out and see if we can find grants. It gives us time to go out and get grants and funding to help fund it somewhere, like we've done with most of our other major projects. I think that's probably a smart move for us. That way we can capture some tax dollars back or someplace, somewhere along, to help us take care and fix the problem completely for a long time standing. I don't think it's great for us to be taking it out of all the other funds. We have so much more to do in this town, that if we can get by 3 to 6 years, and if we can capture some kind of grant or some kind of funding to help us along, and if we end up with 50% of it, it's better than us having to pay the whole bill ourselves. And I see the state is recognizing that our infrastructure is pretty terrible. It's finally feeling over to the federal level, knowing that our whole country infrastructure is failing. Hopefully they might get the word out there that they need to be spending the money back in and getting our country and everything in order, as we have been doing in the city of Grand Haven. We've been taking and pumping into this, getting our infrastructure up to thing. But it'd be nice if we could grab those dollars and have them come back to us and fix it completely. I'm willing to wait a little bit and try and get some grants. If we're gonna dig in right away, our opportunity to get a grant is like, we can't do it today.
Sure.
Yeah, I would have a tendency to agree with Mike. I just, I think this is something that can wait. You know, I travel this a lot. There's a certain amount of thrill.
Well,
It's pretty bad.
That's a good word.
It's just kind of fun, you know, so. So I don't think this is, you know, as long as the culvert is fine and there's strength there, if that's not anything that we have to be concerned about, I think I'd like to say agree with Mike. Let's see if we can, you know, leverage our money with you know, a grant here or there. And since this is such a well-traveled road, it's such a connection between the township and the city, that I'd be fine going that route, doing what we need to do in the short run. But
Judging by the, looking for the oil splotch on the road where that thrill takes place when it jolts your car enough to shake the oil loose from the pan.
that's the coffee you spilled.
Oh, is that the coffee that I spilled? Yeah, that could be it too. You know, this is one of those, I guess, rare circumstances where I think it makes much more financial sense to put a pretty hefty Band-Aid on it to buy us 3 to 6 years and look for funding opportunities elsewhere. As Jerry just stated, this is very heavily traveled between Grand Haven and the township. Of all the roads and things we have around, that would seem as an awesome partnership opportunity for the township to help out. You're never going to come back to one of these meetings again, are you? Yeah, there it is. Yeah. But, you know, whether it's Grand Haven Township or some other funding source, this is yeah, there you go. So there's my sense.
Well, I think it's a waste of $55,000. I wouldn't build on a bad foundation. I wouldn't put that pavement on this bad road. I think it needs to be rebuilt. Where the money's gonna come from, it may have to come from some other project that we were hoping to do, or maybe we don't do anything at all until we can find some money. But I wouldn't spend $55,000 for a 3 to 6 year fix, because we talk a lot about kicking the can down the road. This is a pretty short kick, and there it is facing us again. And we just talked about this long repaving schedule list that we can't afford already. I think this is one that needs to be reconstructed and not repaved, and I think it'd be a waste of money.
Can we enjoy the thrill for 3 more years without doing a thing?
I don't know if Mike's Corvette will make it across that road for 3 more years.
Like, if we do the hefty Band-Aid approach, as I called it, it does free up about $90,000 for these other roads that we have on our agenda, so I like that idea. As Bob said, if we could free up the whole 145, that'd be great, but I don't want people to bottom out.
I'm for doing the option A for 55,000. I don't want to spend the 425,000. You know, not now anyways. And I think the best thing to do, like Mike said, is try to get some funding and help us, some state funding or something that can help us solve the problem. In the meantime, 5 or 6 years, we can start saving some money every year, and we can get it done in 5 or 6 years when it needs it. You know, when it needs to be done again. But I think the temporary fix for now is the way to go.
Good.
Okay. All right, it is, depending on which clock you look at, it is either 7:27 or 7:30, and I guess we will go with the 7:30. So we will temporarily adjourn our work session and move into our city council meeting. Linda, would you call the roll, please? And we will come back to the rest of our work session items in our regular council agenda.
Sorry, I'm just moving the work session stuff on the.
Pardon?
I'm just moving my work session.
Oh,
agenda
okay,
stuff
all right.
on the minutes here. Okay. Manetza?
Here.
Bruger?
Here.
Scott?
Here?
Fritz?
Here.
Michaela?
Here. Our invocation will be given this evening by Pastor Michael Gores of St. Matthew's Lutheran Church in Spring Lake. Please remain standing after the prayer for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We're thankful for much following last week's Coast Guard Festival, but we are also saddened after yesterday's loss of life at Grand Haven State Park. If allowed, before the invocation, let's just have a moment of silence for the two individuals who lost their lives yesterday. Let us pray. Merciful God, graciously look upon the family members and friends of the two individuals who lost their lives yesterday. Remember them in all their sorrow and grief. Support them and all of us when we are unable to understand the things that happen. But comfort the family members and friends and console them, and grant that through your merciful help they may have courage to face the days ahead. And bless now this meeting with your wisdom and your guidance. We ask this. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you much. Okay. We have two appointments to make this evening. I don't know, my agenda says, I don't know if that was fixed online. There are two appointments, not reappointments.
I have it. I'll read it correctly.
Okay.
This is to appoint Kevin Waters to the Musical Fountain Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2022, and Alex Winter as an ex officio member of the Musical Fountain Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. And is there any comments? If not, we will have a vote.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes. Now, Kevin was not able to be with us this evening. Oh, but Alec is. And so I'd like to meet Linda up at the podium, and we'll swear you in. Alec is going to be our ex officio member, and Kevin, who was the ex officio member, is going to become a voting member of the Musical Fountain Committee.
I, Alec Winter, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Musical Fountain Committee as an ex officio in and for the city of Grand Haven, County of Ottawa, and state of Michigan according to the best of my ability.
I do.
this point, we want to make a presentation thanking our man, Vester Davis, who is going to move on to bigger and better things. So, Vester, if you want to meet me at the podium.
There you go.
I'm going to read this resolution of appreciation for Vester Davis Jr. Whereas Vester Davis Jr. came to work for the city of Grand Haven as a management intern on July 21st, 2014, and was promoted to assistant to the city manager on January 1st, 2016. And whereas Vester was quick to earn the friendship and support of Grand Haven's elected officials, citizens, staff, and partners in all areas of municipal service delivery, and whereas responsibilities included the successful presentation of dynamic graphics and visual support during all city council meetings, becoming Grand Haven's Iron Man, never missing an assignment. And whereas all city contracts with third-party business interests occupying city property were expertly managed by Vester, and he was able to expertly bring new contracts before city council to introduce new tenants to Grand Haven or extend valued relationships with the existing business partners. And whereas Grand Haven entered the universe of social media under Vester's guidance and secured a prominent Facebook and Twitter presence, thereby multiplying the impact of Grand Haven's message of positive, productive governance for all. And whereas our kiosks remained full of exciting and vital public information, and Vester made it through snow, rain, heat, and gloom of night to post flyers in our downtown district. And whereas Vester brought forward grant opportunity, helping apply for, administer, or close out grants for North Beach Tree, Mulligan's Hollow Parking Lot, Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium, Harbor Drive reconstruction. Now therefore be it resolved, and this is the that the Grand Haven Mayor and City Council thanks Vester Davis Jr. for his years of service to the city of Grand Haven, wish him success and prosperity in his future endeavors, and do hereby name the section of street 1 block west of Beacon Boulevard from Grant to Penoyer Street, Davis Street. In honor of your exemplary service to the city.
Yeah.
Just want to thank you, Vester, for all you've done for us in these last 4 years. I know you always get the fun stuff like the contracts and the rentals and all that. And the insurance stuff and all the things that you've been involved in. But you've been a good friend, and appreciate everything you've done. Vester's going to be a manager in Stanton, and take over there, and studying here for 4 years on be a good manager, and he's got the best for a teacher, and wish him all the best. We know you're going to do good things. Go and come back and visit us. Don't be a stranger. And go right ahead.
Any questions?
I was just going to say that.
But seriously, I'd like to thank the City Council and Pat and the team here in Grand Haven and the citizens here in Grand Haven for the opportunity to come here and learn and have a world of experiences. You know, the list can go on and on of all my first things that I've done here since my time here in Grand Haven. It's been heck of a ride. Been very welcoming to myself. I keep echoing that, and my family. Coast Guard, we got through another one, so. But yeah, it's been a great adventure. Learned a lot. Pat has been a great mentor. His family is incredible. So I think you all are in great shape, in great hands. Whoever may take my place, I think is very capable. But yeah, it's been a great ride here, and I appreciate all the gifts and the congratulatory people stopping by the office, all the relationships that I've made over the time here, and all the great people I've met. So I'll still say Grand Haven is a fun place. So.
We are not through. So we have one other little item. Start out with this clue, City of Grand Haven 2018 Service Award to our city manager, Pat McGinnis.
Yay!
Pat is a humble guy, but I'm going to ask him. Pat always does a lot of work behind the scenes. Then he lets other people in front of him take the credit. So at this point, we're going to turn things around here just a little bit. So I'm going to read this. City of Grand Haven, Michigan, Pat McGinnis 15-year anniversary recognition. 15 years is a long time, and a city manager in one city doesn't happen very often. So.
Especially Grand Haven.
We will get into that as we go along. So whereas the city of Grand Haven in 1915 was one of the first cities in Michigan to adopt the council manager form of government, and whereas Pat McGinnis is the 14th city manager who has served Grand Haven, and his tenure is the second longest in the city's history. This year celebrating 15 years and going strong. Whereas he has shown a true love for this city and dedication in his role as city manager, initiating and guiding numerous community projects, including Lighthouse Conservation, Cold Tibble Preservation, Save the Catwalk, Lynn Sherwood Waterfront Stadium, and the Reimagine Project. Whereas as an active Rotarian, he has served as a board president and secretary, has helped bring about the splash pad and the soon-to-be East Grand River climbing web. And whereas as a fundraiser, he participates in many charity runs and fundraising events throughout the year, has braved the polar plunge, as well as a dunk tank, and established an ongoing fundraising effort which could assure a great 4th of July fireworks show for years to come. And whereas he heads up a team for the setting and taking down of American flags for patriotic holidays, has taken time to create an employee/family fun event on Coast Guard Saturday, providing a place at City Hall to watch the Grand Parade, grill hot dogs while assuring a shady front row seat right next to the reviewing stand to catch the best acts of the parade. He organized the New Year's Eve ball drop, complete with playlist, as well as indoor trick-or-treat to provide a safe place for kids on Halloween. And where he is a great supporter and partnerships with Grand Haven Area Community Foundation and Grand Haven Public Schools, is a mentor in the Kids Hope program, takes time to help young men earn their Eagle Scout Merit Badge projects, and whereas he is an active member of St. Patrick's Church and participates in their volunteer projects. Therefore, be it resolved that we recognize Pat McGinnis this 15-year milestone in his career and give a hearty well done.
Any questions? Yeah, thank you so much. It's really an honor to serve in Grand Haven and to serve such a fine community is a reward in itself every single day. So I hope this isn't 15 and C. Thank you very much. I hope I can continue to serve you and do the best job that I possibly can.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Bonnie.
Are we going to adjourn?
Oh, that's right. Geez, I totally forgot.
And
I'm sorry.
whereas Pat McGinnis
Whereas.
loves cake.
All
we
right.
have- Please come and have a piece.
Oh, wow. I do like cake.
So do I. Even brought
That's
coffee.
right. I agree.
Go with the cake.
I was beginning to wonder what happened to that cake.
Yeah.
We were talking about that
I
earlier.
got caught up in a moment.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you for being a little late.
Why is that?
Because I've been late before, and it's made me feel.
This is the first time I've ever.
I know, well, thank you. Took you how many years, and I did it.
I know, yeah.
I did it once when I didn't know the meeting started at 6:30, and I was coming.
Oh, that's right, forget
came
it,
in about
yeah.
7, and I walked in.
Well,
Said,
I knew it didn't. I just got caught up in my. That house is driving me nuts.
Oh, you were working on the house.
No, I wasn't there. I mean, but I was on the
Mentally, you
phone.
were there. You were,
Yeah, well,
yep.
mentally, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that goes. Sometimes that's worse. Sometimes it's better to get a sledgehammer and just go.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Oh, that's fun.
Josh, just to let you know, Grand Street was put on by Bill Hunter, and he wouldn't take it off. And even though so I don't think it's not a priority street to be rebuilt then right
It's
now.
not right now.
Not
Okay.
with me.
Yeah.
I don't.
No, it's a resurface thing is what we're thinking here, yeah.
I mean resurface, but they don't want to resurface it because they think it needs to be all rebuilt.
Bill had it on there as a rebuild.
Priority rebuilt.
Yeah, yep. So that's the hangover from, maybe tell Pat that. And he can get the
I
message
did. I
out.
told him that
Oh, did you
before.
tell him that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe I can also say it now.
All
that
right.
I know, hey, I heard from somebody who shall remain nameless. There may have been a...
The reason you put it on there because people probably told you that before. When they put the water main through for the township, they cut the sewer lines off.
That's right.
And they stuck them in there, and they cemented them. And over the years, they were breaking. They had to keep replacing. That's not a
That's
the
not
main
rebuild the
sewer.
entire
The main sewer is not that bad.
Just the capping.
And that's the fault of the people that put that. I told you, when I seen what they were doing, I went back to Jerry Liskey. I said, Jerry, this is good. And Jerry agreed. And he came back and he said, the engineers come up with this plan. He said, it was all approved. He said by the city council.
Signed off on it and everything.
And
Well, there you go.
couldn't do nothing about it. But that road is not a total.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, that, I think, that makes sense because the residents on the 900 block, they said, getting told that we're on the list to get something done or rebuild, nothing ever seems to get done. We don't understand what's going on.
I'm trying to block it. That's why.
Well, the rebuild of it, but we can resurface in the
It
meantime.
needed to be resurfaced.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that sheds some light on it.
When we get the high humidity, I get a lot of alarms.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
What goes off with the humidity?
well, several of my labs, including our Monticello room, are running high humidity alarms. If they get over about 50%, I get alarms on my phone. There's not very much I can do about it.
The air conditioning doesn't take enough
Not enough.
humidity out of the air to...
Not enough, not for process control.
Yep.
I mean, 50% is hard to hit with just air conditioning.
So do you, at that point, do you run to Walmart, get some dehumidifiers, and start sucking water out of the air? Or
Funny you should ask, because that's a common response.
Is it really? Well, yeah.
So I got this one lab, our mechanical testing lab, is full of stress rupture frames. And it's got a 30-ton air conditioner and a 20-ton air conditioner supplying this room. That's 20,000 CFM of air.
That's a lot of
It's
air.
a lot of air.
I dumped your water
Basically,
off, too.
it's
Thank you.
constant wind through the board.
I said, did you film it?
We were running high humidity. It turned out to be more of a controls issue than a capacity issue. The boss, our boss said,
Yeah.
well, go get some dehumidifiers and put it in
I
there.
dumped yours out, I dumped mine
And you
out.
talk about a fart in the wind. This is,
We've got
there's these won't do anything.
tons of air we're moving.
We got 20,000 CFM moving, and you think that a little dehumidifier is going to do something?
Yep.
Third of that.
That's funny.
Thank you. But yeah, that's a pretty common reaction. Let's get, or in the wintertime, let's get a humidifier. Let's get one of those little water wheel humidifiers and going. Yeah, there again, you know, it's hardly be noticed.
Residential home store.
Yeah, and you're trying to maintain process control so that you can have quality control.
just got done saying
You
no
want
to-
you want something a little more robust. than that.
When that went before the, okay, what we
Meanwhile, I get a bunch of alarms that I can't do anything about.
Sure.
was for sewers, water, streets,
Well, we just took, we said no to a public improvement fund for the culvert.
we'll discuss it when we get to it pretty quick here, but yeah. No ice cream tonight.
Huh?
No ice cream tonight.
We got cake.
I know we got cake, yeah.
Let me give you a glass.
Hey, that water tasted really weird, so I got some better water.
Hey,
I don't know if that's last time's water or.
it was. I asked Linda, I said, you changed it? She said,
That's why it tastes like it does.
yeah, so dump that out and get some more.
It is nasty.
Thank you, Mike. We should be good now. Well, that's better.
Didn't know you were coming in for cake, huh? Didn't know you were coming here for cake too, huh?
Really did scam me.
Yeah, you already.
All right, we'll all resume in our places.
All sugared up.
Yes, places are. Okay, we are to the approval of the consent and regular agendas, and I know there's at least one change.
Actually, we have general business call the audience first.
Oh, did I, gosh,
No, we don't.
Oh, sorry.
no, that comes
No,
afterwards.
sorry, I had my
Okay.
cursor in the wrong
No,
spot.
that's fine, I was willing to admit I made another
I was
mistake, but
adding
that was.
stuff and I went back in the wrong
Now you
place.
don't have to.
Never mind.
No, I don't.
No, you're all right.
I take back my admission of a second mistake.
Never mind.
All right. So, anyway, I know we need to add, one things we need to add is that resolution to the agenda.
Yes, I'd like to add the Home Depot grant approval to support the reimagined budget. And I think
Actually, I added the resolution for Pat's 15-year recognition and then the Home Depot one to the end of the consent agenda.
Oh,
Is that okay?
it's okay, if that's okay.
Everything.
That the Home Depot will be on the consent, they'll both be on the consent agenda. All right.
Well, that's items H and I.
Correct.
So I need a motion to, is there any other changes that anybody wants to suggest? If not, I need a motion to accept the agendas with these two additions to the consent agenda.
So
I'll
moved.
make that a motion.
Second.
It's been, and then we need to vote on that.
Bruger,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Vanessa.
Yes.
Michaela.
Yes. All right, now general business call of the audience. Please just let us know who you are and where you live, and then let us know your comment.
Okay, I'm Gail Ringelberg, 16 Lafayette Avenue, Grand Haven. And I'm addressing the next item on your work session agenda, but since you don't take public input during the work session, I'm going to give you my public input now. But before I do that, there's a couple things I want to say. One is I really want to thank Public Safety, the City Council street crews, and all the staff behind the scenes for a wonderful Coast Guard Festival again. It went off, I think, what I could tell as a consumer, I think it went off without a hitch. I'm sure you have stories here, but I know it's not fun for all those people. It's work, and but we really do appreciate it. The second thing I want to do is congratulate you for having a city of paved roads. In July, I was at a friend's house who has a multi-million-dollar house in Bloomfield Hills in a residential neighborhood. He's not rural, it's residential, and it's all dirt roads in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan.
Oh.
Yeah, so be proud that our streets are paved. The issue I'm going to talk about, you've seen me before, and that is the burying the lines in front of our condo complex, which is the Grand Haven Cottages on Harbor Avenue. And I want to thank Josh for getting back and forth with me. We've had some conversations, and while I don't totally agree with Josh, I do appreciate his getting information back to me. What I learned through all this, because I guess I had always looked at the zoning law and in the zoning map, and in the zoning map, our area is in the waterfront district. So is Sandpiper, so is Boardwalk. It goes all the way to the Boardwalk condominiums is the waterfront district. What I didn't realize was that, until I started digging deeper, was that our development, which stops at Howard, is part of the CBDDA TIF district. And so Sandpiper is not part of that district, even though they're part of the waterfront district. So there is a line drawn at Howard Street. And so because we're part of the TIF district, I looked up the plan, development plan, when they developed the TIF district. And in that plan, they talked specifically about doing improvements, and that the TIF would pay for that. And the TIF included physical improvements, right-of-way utilities, all those things that you're talking about now was to be paid by the TIF, which Grand Haven Cottages have been paying over $50,000 as a property unit every year to the city of Grand Haven into that TIF. Well, I shouldn't say that. The special assessment you want to give me is over $50,000. I've shared with you before that my personal tax, additional tax, is around $350 a year in addition to the other city property tax that I pay just on my home. The TIF was created to pay for the CBDDA improvements, and I know most of that was, well, all of it was the improvements to Washington, the rebuild of Washington, which included the snow melt. And so I understand that that the TIF is not being paid off in a timely fashion, and that there will not be money for, probably in my lifetime, for that TIF to recapture everything and pay for the burying of the lines. What I find inconsistent, though, is the fact that Sandpiper had their lines buried 2 years ago for free. And they're not in the TIF. They don't pay the special tax. They are a waterfront district, and their lines were buried. The lines along Harbor, historically, have all been buried, and most of those were buried, like in front of the boardwalk. They were buried when Harbor was rebuilt. That makes perfect sense to me that they waited till they rebuilt Harbor. Those people were not special assessed for those burying of the lines. That was part of the rebuild of the street. But now you're asking that if those of us who are, you're asking the Zephyr, you're asking Brisa de Largo, you're asking the Dairy Treat, you're asking the Grand Haven Cottages to in fact pay a third of the cost to bury their lines. You're not improving our street, so I know you're improving the street to Franklin Street, so I can't speak for Zephyr. They may be willing to pay the special assessment. I know that I am here missing an HOA board meeting tonight because they wanted me here to express to you that the Grand Haven Cottages does not want to be part of a special assessment. So if our lines stay above ground, so be it. And what I hope is that as you talk about getting grants for future street improvements, eventually you're going to have to tear up the street in Harbor out in front of me and in front of the Snug, because you're going to have to replace pipes and all the things you're doing, which you have to do. And hopefully when you do that, at that point in time, you will include in the grant the burying of the lines. That may be 30 years from now and I'll be dead and gone, but the fact is that the Grand Haven Cottages does not want to be part of a special assessment, and we will live with our lines above the ground. So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay? Thank you.
All right, thanks, Gail.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tyler Summers. I live at 15050 Hidden Lake Trail in Grand Haven by the high school. And I am the owner of the Burger Boat, and I wanted to just come down here tonight and introduce myself so you guys could see my face and get to know me. And yeah, I just wanted to stop in and say that. But I wanted to start out with just saying a huge thanks to you guys and to the city manager, Mr. McGinnis, and Chief Hawk, just for all what they did, working on getting me down here and letting me be able to, have my business start here, because I know that there was some conflict on that and some disagreements, and I just was super thankful for them and for you guys allowing me to be here, and that was just super important to me and out of my family, just with all the hard work we've put into this and the idea that I had, and I was just super excited about it. Being 17 years old, being able to start my own business, it was just amazing to have you guys have me here. And I was just super thankful for that, and I wanted to come down and let you guys know that, and let you know that it didn't go unnoticed, that I didn't, have that week, and start my business and, let people come by and support me, and then, not come in here and say thank you to you guys who actually, pulled it off for me and allowed me to do it, because that was a huge part of it. I just wanted to, let you guys know that. I also wanted to say, I think that whether it was people coming to the boat and buying food, or it was people walking by, on the boardwalk and seeing my boat, I got smiles, I got compliments, I got to meet tons of new people, and it was awesome just to see the response from the public and how much they supported me in it, being at my age and the new idea and just the excitement of it all. That was really cool, and to see that Fox News did a story on me, and I was on the radio, and Grand Haven Tribune did a story on me. That was just amazing publicity for the city, and that was, I really enjoyed that, and I hope that, helped the city out. And I know that I got a call actually from a guy in Texas who told me that his brother was up here, and his brother came and actually said hi to me. He drove here into Grand Haven just to see me and just to say hi at the Burger Boat, and I just thought that was super cool, and I just wanted to let you guys know that I hope this brings people to Grand Haven. I don't want this just to be for me, and just for me to make money or take away from other businesses at all. I want this to be something that will benefit the community and benefit the city, and maybe can be something that will draw people here and be really an interest for people. That's my hope for it. So I just wanted to come down here and say thank you to you guys and let you know that I'm very appreciative of what you've done and how you've supported me and allowed me to be here. And I hope that I'll be able to come back next year, or however it is, we can figure that out more later. But I just wanted to let you guys know how much this meant to me, and that you guys just were a big part of this. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me. Yeah.
Good job.
No, I appreciate you coming and saying thanks, because that I know there's some issues and some confusion, but it's nice of you to come down and say thank you. That you were definitely noticed.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
My name is Jim Warners. I live on Harbor Drive, and I want to encourage the city to bury the power lines, and as a resident and property owner, are happy but willing to participate in the cost of that project. When there was a public hearing in February, I think, I would say the vast majority of property owners were, as a resident of the Zephyr, I'm not sure about all, but almost everyone that I have talked to Gary Van Valkenburg has talked to a number of business owners. They are also in favor of burying the power lines. We want to support you and help make this important improvement to the city.
All right, thanks. Anyone else?
Hello. My name's Matt Seabor. I live at 521 Grant Street in Grand Haven. And just here to talk a little bit about the burying of the utility lines. I'm totally in favor of it. I'm also representing another family member who has 3 units downtown who would like to see it done, but he couldn't be here today. Just on a personal note, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you go into a new subdivision or something like that, you never see them put utility lines overhead these days. They're all underground. I think the timing is perfect to do something like this. I wouldn't suggest that the city undertake this to get the lines buried just because, but since it can be intertwined with the construction project, it just makes perfect sense. It doesn't make any sense to me not to do it at this point. And you know, I happened to be looking at the paper about a week or 2 ago when somebody hit the pole right outside of Chinook Pier. And that pole went down, and luckily that went another way, and I don't think anybody was really injured in that, except I think it was a truck that hit it, if I remember correctly. So I don't think anybody really got hurt, but also saying from a security standpoint, if something like that were to happen, and there's 200,000 people downtown looking at fireworks and this and that and parades, and high voltage lines right overhead, that, to me, that's just a scary thought. So again, I just as a citizen, I'd like to see it done, and also have a side interest in representing somebody that would like to see it done. So I just thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Gary Van Valkenburg. I live on 22 South Harbor, and would also like to encourage the council to move forward with this project, which has already now been agreed to. Both the conduit has been agreed to and paid for by the Board of Light and Power, and additionally that they've authorized 1/3 of the cost, which up to $300,000. And my understanding is at one time we had a resolution that would allow us to pay 1/3 by the city, 1/3 by the Board of Light and Power, and 1/3 by the assessment. And as far as the assessment goes, it's actually a win for everyone. The Board of Light and Power, they get a 1/3 cost of a brand new plant that's going to last 25, 30 years. City gets the betterment of the community. They get the beautification of the area, and they get the release from the potential liability that we now know that these wires have. As far as the property owners, as soon as those wires go down, everyone along the Harbor Street area will benefit from an increase in property value. I think our property values will increase over time. The increase in value over time will benefit the city. The increase in additional residents along the area will benefit the Board of Light and Power as well. As far as the waterfront district goes, we have been paying our taxes an additional 1.7 mil, which will also increase, by the way, increased value of the property along the way. And these taxes we paid have gone to benefit other areas of the community. Now we're asking that some of this be returned to our area of the community. Finally, I'd say that the burying of these wires, as all of us know, will definitely improve the Harbor Street area, the park, the Sherwood park, and the whole area in the downtown. It will benefit everyone in the community directly or indirectly because everybody uses the street. I can attest to it. There are literally tens of thousands of cars go by there every weekend and almost every day. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Gary. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor. Diane Sheridan, Grand Haven Main Street. I have just a couple of things to share with you. Next weekend, August 17th and 18th, will be our annual sidewalk sales in downtown Grand Haven. That takes place before our next council meeting, so I wanted to make sure you all know that you are warmly invited to come downtown, as well as the general public, and find some great deals on everything from diamonds to dog biscuits will be on sale, and it's a wonderful time of community. We have one of the finest sidewalk sales in the state of Michigan with our active downtown. The other little comment I would like to make is that we're doing a final call for artists for Art Walk. We're taking applications for artists through August 22nd, and in just 6 weeks, we'll be doing our opening event on September 8th. So I have some little save the date reminder cards for you. Just to put that on your calendar, you'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks, but I wanted to give you a heads up, save the date, 6 weeks, Art Walk kicks off.
All right, thanks.
Enthusiastic. Ready to go. Wow.
Thanks, Diane.
My name is Bob McCullough. I live in 22 South Harbor. And rather than reiterate all the things that Gary and Jim have said, I'll just say ditto to those things. But I'd like to add one other thing to that, and that is that upon this year watching the fireworks and seeing as we look out to the, out to the channel, one thing that I did notice, in addition to the fact that these are overgrown, the trees that are along that I don't know what you call that area, they're really overgrown. They're pretty much unsightly, and they blocked probably 500 or so people from seeing the fireworks. So I would like for you to consider that as you're beautifying that area. I'd like for you to consider that also.
All right, thanks. Anyone else want to make a comment at this time? If not, we will move on with our continuation of our work session, our last two items on our work session. The first of which is that underground placement of the lines on Harbor Drive. So we'll ask Pat to make that start that presentation.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick recap of where we've been on this issue. It did not initiate with City Council or the BLP or staff for that matter. It was mostly advocated by property owners down along that stretch. They've been making it known that they're interested in those lines being buried since the Zephyr was first built.
Right.
And we made it clear when the alleyway project was underway and when we rebuilt Washington Avenue that was not part of the project and that that would need to be a separate standalone project. And if you recall back 10 or 12 years ago, the BLP did come along and used those Hendrix clips and sort of consolidated the lines and made it look quite a bit nicer than it had. They did do a restoration project along there to clean things up, and it looks a lot nicer now than it did prior to that effort. But with the announcement of the reconstruction of those 2 blocks of harbor, there was some renewed interest by some of the property owners down there, and they said we'd really like to see something happen and get those lines underground. At the same time, there was some discussion about possibly putting snow melt in those couple blocks, maybe just in the sidewalk. So you might remember we set up 2 ideas. Oh, good graphic. What is that ugly stadium there? That's not a little picture. I'm sorry, it's not ugly at all. I didn't know. Served us very well. But the discussion at the public hearing that we did have, City Council passed a resolution directing staff to do the survey to report on the need for, the cost of, and all that required information of this as a public improvement. The snow melt got very little support at the public hearing. The underground power lines got significant support from those that showed up at the first public hearing. So City Council passed resolution number 2, having us advance the project and refine some of the numbers and come back with a proposed cost share and how much each property would be expected to contribute to the special assessment, at which time it was made clear that the BLP wasn't necessarily on board, and we were looking at 50-50, half the cost, and it was an $844,000 estimate, so $422,000 from the BLP, $422,000 special assessment. And again, with that proposed cost share, the public hearing demonstrated, as Jim had said earlier, seemed like most of the people that were here were in support of that proposed cost share. But the City Council said we don't have any commitment from the BLP, so it's not much sense continuing with the process of the special assessment until we know more. And now we know that the BLP would be willing to go up to 1/3 of the cost. And I don't know if Esther, if you're able to get that little pie chart. You know, if we reworked the numbers with that initial 50% being paid by the residents, and what I did is I looked at the whole cost of the overall project that I included the cost of the road project, and that's kind of hard to see there, so that didn't come out as well as I had hoped. But the total cost is just over $2,800,000 that's going to be spent down there if we do the underground electric. If we were to go with a special assessment for half the cost of the underground and the BLP paid 1/3, it would leave about $150,000 unaccounted for, with no identified source for that money. I used a number of $50,000 as other. We're thinking about talking to the Coast Guard Festival because part of this project would put pedestals on the river side of the road where they would easily be able to connect to that for their annual row of vendors there. Currently, they spend $5,000 to $10,000 a year to have those poles set and an electrician come in and get everything ready for them. So they would be willing to commit to a 5 or 10 year assessment, maybe 10 years at $5,000 per year to cover a $50,000 share of that. So I did apply that here to get that number down to $150,000. So this is just one way of looking at it. The purpose of the special assessment process is to continue, we have to have another public hearing, continue to take that public input and negotiate on the fly, listen to what the public has to say, listen to what City Council is willing to do, if anything, consider other opportunities, and then come up with what hopefully most people agree with. Now, past City Councils have seemed only to appreciate special assessments when they've got a significant majority of property owners supporting it. Now, the process doesn't provide for an election or a vote or anything like that. It only provides for if a majority of property owners sign a petition, they can force the council to have a 4/5 vote. But that's the only popular vote type approach to it. If City Council were forging ahead with a special assessment project and a majority of the owners of property were to petition, then you would have to get 4 out of 5 votes in order to move forward with a special assessment. But that's the only thing that's allowed for that. That is not to say you can't direct that we have a direct survey. I mean, that would be irregular and it hasn't been done before, but usually you get your feedback through the public hearing process. You listen to what people have to say when they show up. Perhaps people send you emails or send in letters for the record, and we'd be able to try to ascertain how much support there is for it. But again, City Council didn't come along and say, Pat, let's bury those lines. We want to do a special assessment. It was more the other way around. The property owners said, we'd like to see those lines buried. We'd like to see it so much, we would be willing to consider a special assessment. Then you get into, well, how much? And of course, at the time when they first came forward and said, we'd be willing to consider a special assessment, they had no idea it would be $800,000. They might have been thinking it would be something just significantly less than that. And finally, the last thing I'll comment on is that the $800,000 I'm using now is because the BLP was able to get a very attractive price to bury the conduit within the project limits. So that number for that conduit is now taken out of it. So we think maybe it wouldn't be $844,000, maybe it would be down somewhere closer to $800,000. So maybe that bite is a little bit less now than the full $850,000 that I show on the board there. So that number might be less than we had originally thought. So I'll just leave it at that and take any direction from city council. And, again, tonight's not a public hearing. We did get some comment during the general business call to the audience about what some of the owners down there think, but we did not advertise a public hearing. But that, if you're interested in picking it back up, we pick back up where we left off. I checked with Linda and Terry, and there's nothing, Terry Van Hall, our treasurer, and Linda Browand, our clerk, there's nothing that says that the first couple steps you took have gone stale. We can just pick up where we left off, or you can direct, let's start all over again with the first public hearing, whatever your preferences are. But at this point, I look to city council to see where you want to go with this thing.
One question, Pat. It's 150,000 we have to come up with. Is that plus the assessment that would go on our property?
No, the assessments on our property are already included in the assumed
in the 150,000?
$400,000 special assessment.
400,000.
It's not
okay,
included
okay.
in that.
Okay.
And we're already 200,000 over budget because of the traffic light on this project also?
Yes. And that is included in that road work number that we're providing up there. Well, I show it, I separated it under these expenses as $200,000.
And the $50,000 is in our memo as other, that's Coast Guard Festival commitment?
They've not committed to it, but they've suggested they'd like to talk to us about
Okay,
participating
so
if we do decide to go underground.
another one that's a maybe.
Correct.
And one comment about the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 concept, that was never an agreement with council. That's something that BLP said they'd do a third. Council never said they would do a third. We never discussed it, we never voted on it. The special assessment process and the whole process that preceded this evening, or the BLP commitment, was that special assessment half, BLP or somewhere, the other half. And now we're looking at, according to the numbers in our packet, 142,000 or thereabouts. Unaccounted for is this put here, and another 50,000, that's a maybe. And we just, earlier in our work session, we talked about our $2.1 million repaving stuff that we don't have money for, some of our other projects that we don't have money for, so I can't see us backing off on the special assessment. I think that needs to happen. I think the only question here is, where are we gonna get this other $142,000? I don't think we're gonna pick up the other 1/6 would be that third that was talked about. I think that the only thing we need to decide is whether or not we want to pick up this 142,000 out of some city money or some other source. Have we got any idea where that money's going to come from?
We do not, no.
I mean, when we had the public hearings last, I believe it was in February, we got the message loud and clear that the people on Harbor Drive wanted this project. Most were willing to pay a special assessment, even though they might have preferred not to, but there's a lot of pressure on the city's funds for a lot of projects. And this one, in my opinion, is almost entirely aesthetic. There's maybe a small safety component, but I can count on one hand the number of power poles snapped off by errant vehicles. Maybe there's a greater risk from windstorms and such, but I think this is an aesthetic issue. It's a legitimate one, but because it's basically our front porch for our community, but we have to balance that against the other things that we have to do as a community to support our infrastructure. So I don't see us not going after the 50% special assessment. And the way that was balanced out, we had some city property specially assessed at a lesser rate because it was on the west side of Harbor, and a lot of private property that was on the east side of Harbor, east or south, whichever. The road kind of runs at an angle. So I mean, to me, what we had the public hearing on, the special assessment structure that we talked about, is still what's in play. And now I think that, and I haven't heard from the rest of council yet about this, the rest of this money, but this 1/6 of the project that's unaccounted for at this point, I think we'd have to have a pretty good idea where that money's coming from and what we're not going to do because we're going to do this. I'll pass it along to others at this point.
Well, I have, various questions about this, and one of them is, and like Bob said, we never agreed to any amount that we were gonna pay. The last we heard, it was a 50-50, 50 for the BLP and 50 for the people along the way. The city does have some property along there. But then also, we were first told that even to bury the conduit from Franklin to Columbus, that part that was open, there was an estimate that was going to cost $100,000, and then when the price actually came in, it was less than $25,000. So, which dropped the price of the overall project by quite over $50,000. So that which makes me wonder about the whole $850,000 amount. But we're again dealing with uncertainties. And as the same has been said before, we don't have the money, to repave as many streets as we need to, not as we would like, but as we really need to. And so I would also not. We never agreed to do 1/3 before the BLP voted that they would. That's how they wanted to split it up. And so, the question is, what budget does that, if we would wanted to do that, what budget does that come out of? It's not in our budget. It's not in our 5-year plan. It's not, it's, the BLP, it's their power lines. And when we do infrastructure, we take care of water, sewer, and streets, and so this is a different item of infrastructure. And I'm not opposed to paying, what the city's share is as far as what city property is, but as more than that, I don't think the taxpayers of the city should be paying for that.
I'm not fond of the idea either. I mean, it's not a budget item. We don't have it in our budget. There's a lot of priorities that we have besides burying electric lines, and I think the Board of Light and Power should step up and bury their own lines. It's their job to take care of that part of it. Our job is to take care of, like Jerry said, our sewers and our water and our streets. That's a big part of what we do. And I think the Board of Light and Power has to take care of their own lines. As far as special assessment goes, if we did go to special assessment, I wouldn't have a problem paying assessment on our lines, but I don't want to come and take infrastructure money or general fund money right now and stick it in underground electric. We need the conduit in there. There's no doubt about that. When we open the road up, we need to put the conduit in there to get ready for it. But I'm not. I don't want to use any general fund money or any infrastructure money to bury electric lines.
Any other comments?
Well, I guess this is work session extension. We don't have a motion, and it's not on a regular agenda, but I would like to know where, if we decide to pick up 1/6 of this cost out of the public money, where that money would come from. And perhaps Pat and his staff could present some ideas, or if there's any grants or anything else. And we certainly should put in conduit in the street that's open. I don't know if that 100,000 versus 25,000, if that original number included wire or if it was just conduit. I'm not sure I saw that detail, but I wouldn't expect the whole project to be 1/4 of the original estimate. I think that was just a special case of conduit in an open street.
No.
So why it went from 100,000 to 25,000, I'm not really sure. But there may have been misunderstanding about the scope of that.
That's possible.
like I say, I think that the special assessment hearings we had before would be our starting point. And the question would be this other 1/6 of the cost. What are we not going to do if we do this? So that's what I'd like to see from either proposal from staff or from anybody else as to where, we're spending the people's money on all these projects. The city doesn't actually have its own money. So how do we allocate that money and where do we spend it for the greatest public good? There's no question there's public good in this project, but there's a lot of stuff to spread our resources around on. The special assessment included some city money. The rest of the project, the other couple $1,000,000 in this project is a combination of grant money and city bond money, and that's all real money that we're spending on those 2 blocks. So it comes back to, where's this unbudgeted expense coming from? And are there any other resources we could tap other than our general fund or our public improvement fund? Yeah, I'm not real confident of that, but I guess I'd like to know that.
Well, another question that I have is, it's, what is the actual count of, people or property owners when they understand how much their special assessment would be, are in favor? Because, somebody, can say, and I don't, doubt you're coming here with the best of intentions, but to say, well, I represent 3 people or 5 people, I think we need to see names and addresses. We need to see who, exactly what our count is. When you do something that's somewhat controversial and it's going to cost people money, you really can't do it on a 50-50 basis. That we've done that in the past. That doesn't always work out well. So it really, I think we've always, what our practice has been is we need quite a majority in order to impose something on somebody. So I think we need to have a better idea what the people involved are where their hearts are on this, or where their wallets are on it. I guess maybe more than their hearts.
I think, Jerry, you've got a great point there. And if the timing of the event with the public hearing was at the same time or slightly before we came up with the hard numbers as far as the assessments go, I know I've spoken with some of the individuals in the audience and others have emailed and so forth that they are interested in supporting this. But to Jerry's point, and Bob's, whoever else, Denny maybe has made the same point, in light of some folks who are not interested in paying an assessment, it is a controversial issue. And it would be very nice to have a more firm understanding of exactly where those residents stand before we go that route in doing the assessment at the current rate that it's proposed at, the 50%. I am personally in favor, because I do see a public benefit to the city shouldering more than 1/6 with its between its personal property, their city-owned property that is assessed, and then this other 6 that needs to come up. But to Bob's point, I think knowing where that money's coming from is very good for us to know that before we do it. Had one more thought. I believe the BLP's commitment on the 1/3 wasn't predicated on a 1/3 split all the way across the board. They just agreed to cover up to 1/3 and indicated that they wanted, private property owners and the city to share in some of the expense, which we're already doing as one of the assessed properties. So I definitely agree that the notice was for a 50-50 split, and so we're building off of that. But yeah, I see this as a public benefit. I'd love to see it done. When the road's open, it's the opportune time to do it. And I don't see, just from a straw poll here, that there's support from council to go above 1/6, all the way up to 1/3. So that's what I was going to say. With that in mind, then I would like a much more firm understanding of where the private property owners stand on the issue before we vote on it. But there you go.
So, do we get that from if we're looking for actual numbers with an actual price, do we need that in one more public hearing, or do we want to go back to square one and start over? I guess that's...
You mentioned a petition, would that be the easiest route for the property owners who are in favor, to collect a petition that say, was that what you were saying, Pat?
Well, in the past, you've gotten some, in some of the public hearings that you've had, and also special assessment processes that have happened, you've received petitions from the affected property owners. And city council has been compelled into action when you get 80 or 90% of the actual property owners having signed a petition that you have in front of you, that you can say, well, I'm just doing what the people are asking me to do. That makes it a lot easier, but we haven't gotten a petition like that in this case. We've gotten significant, I don't think we've gotten a signed petition. Maybe okay. So in this case, it's just been verbal support, and I know you've been contacted by some residents, both for and against. So if there were, you may get petitions that don't support it. There's not a mechanism set up in the ordinances that would provide for any kind of a poll. It doesn't mean you can't try to take one, but that would be unusual and kind of irregular. You usually just hold the public hearing, and then the people who show up, we know who they are and what their address is, and then you know who came in and said, I'm in favor of, I'm opposed to, and then you make your determination based on your own judgment about whether or not the majority of property owners want you to move forward.
So is that when you held the public hearing with that, is that you send out invitations to every property owner, or is it just an announcement and you can come if you...
Each of those taxpayers, according to the record, get a notice.
Okay.
And we also, I believe, have to publish it. I'm not sure, but we definitely have to mail it to everybody who's affected.
I'd like to weigh in on this if you don't mind.
No,
I mean,
go right
you guys
ahead.
are going ahead planning ahead a little bit, but
Nope.
We started out on this project and it was only supposed to be so much, and we find out it's going to be a $200,000 light we're adding to it, which is coming out of where, Pat?
I believe that's maybe coming out of the bond fund.
There you go. And that's supposed to be for everything else. It's like I say, it's $200,000 just for lamps down here, and we okayed to have the casing put in there for the underground wiring. But I don't see where we're going to get the money to do anything more. We just got done saying for Gidley Bridge, we're going to put that off because we're going to look for grants and stuff in that order and put that off for a while. And we got $2 million worth of infrastructure, just street paving, not including the $40 million that we have for infrastructure that we have to do. And I have to agree with Bob. It is an aesthetic thing. It looked really nice being underground, but can we really afford, the city of Grand Haven itself afford it? I don't foresee us having that kind of money. I'm looking at the budget we have and what we had set. Our plans are for 5 years. We have it all set. We are planning ahead by putting the casings down, being prepared to put them in the ground. But I don't see where that money is going to come from. I don't want it coming any more out of our bond fund. That bond fund, people gave it to us to put infrastructure in this town, not to put bury wires. It's for streets, sewers, and water, and sidewalks, and stuff on that order. We don't need to take it, that's one place else. Our public improvement fund is for, what we're trying to do is we're using that to do what we can do with it. And that's dwindling. Everything's getting smaller and smaller. Do we need to do just one small section? I have to agree with Gail there. They put the power in there for them down there at no charge. Sure, they say it's one of their projects they had to, but the thing is, these people are already being taxed enough. I mean, good gosh, just adding one more to it, sure, it's going to be nice, but you keep adding more and more and more to them. How long can they survive? Right now, I think it's a good thing for us to be prepared for the future, and that's what we're doing, and find out where the money's going to come from. I don't foresee it. I've looked at the budget many times, looking over, trying to figure out where the dollar is going to come from. And we don't have that. We have too many other major needs in this whole town that we need to take care of. And we got some major work to do, people. I'm telling you what, and burying wires underground is not part of the major work that we need to be doing. We need to spend that money very good and be prepared to do right things for people. That's what I got to weigh in on it.
No, I think, I agree. It's electric lines. We do water, sewer, and streets. Electric lines, that's why you pay an electric bill.
I don't know where the money's going to come from.
And if the utility only wants to pay a third,
It's their benefit. No longer exposed, longer life, and it's their two main lines coming through town. It goes, we have, what did I say here? It was, one of them serves the downtown, and the other one goes straight through the downtown area and serves other parts of the community. It's a major power line coming through there. It serves the community. I think the VLP should probably ante up a little bit more, seeing it's a major lines coming through there. If they're willing to, it'd be nice. I'd like to see that. Figure out where's 300,000 is not a whole lot for what's going to be done. The benefit for them also, long life, not exposed, liability, everything else that falls along with it.
Okay, well, I think I've got all the direction I need. Go find $150,000 and maybe we move forward with it, or if the property owners have some ideas, I can talk to them, but I think I have a good feeling for where City Council stands. I don't know that I need to reignite the special assessment process right now, but I will keep plugging away and I will keep you posted. I think there's general support to have it done. It's just a matter of how it gets paid for at this point.
Yep, who's going to pay for it? Yep.
We would have charged everybody that came to that parade $1.
We could pave our streets.
And another $1 across the bridge to get out.
All right, moving right along. We have one more item on our work session before we even get to the council meeting. But I will give, this is the opportunity if you're not interested in North Shore cross-sections. This is your opportunity. All right. And speaking of North Shore cross-sections, this is also Pat's, all right.
And I also have my friend Derek Gatos here to help me with this.
That's right. There's
The
Derek.
proposed cross-section up there is a 30-foot wide cross-section. In the drawing that I provided to you, it shows a 5-foot paved shoulder on either side with two 10-foot lanes. That, of course, is somewhat arbitrary. That, in some discussions I've had with a couple elected officials who touched base with me, maybe they prefer a different layout there other than 5, 5, 10, 10. That's just what we started out as because that's what we've had. And I think it was just continuing what's there. And I think that's delivering on the promise City Council made. You talked to the people that lived up there a number of years ago and said, we're raising funds to replace your road. You didn't say you were going to build an off-street bike path alongside it, which is what would be the ideal attribute if you could afford it, and we could put a nice bike trail 10 foot off the road, that would be a significant improvement. But that delivers what you set out to do. When we had our neighborhood meetings, which we always have with all projects, they're not formal public hearings or anything, it's just to inform the neighborhood about what's going to happen and get any feedback from them that might help us make it a better project. In this case, they came out in some force at the Ferrysburg meeting and said, we really think as long as you're doing it, you should do it with wider shoulders, wider pedestrian lanes, on-street parking, make our cross-section just like it would be anywhere else in town where you've got, detached off-street pedestrian ways or sidewalks, and you've got enough room for cars to park on street, and we don't have that out there. So we just put together the cost of what would it take to make a 6-foot wider roadway, and then what would it cost to make an 11-foot wider roadway. And I've provided you with what those cost estimates are, and look to you to see if there's any inclination, and in this, I'd probably put it on an agenda on a bad night to talk about this. But it's one more thing. It's money, and city council controls those funds, and you've not appropriated anything more than what we can do with the $1,194,000 budget, which pretty much just puts the road back in with the existing cross-section, or very similar to the existing cross-section.
Yeah, actually, it is a slight improvement, but it functions as the way the Ferrisburg section is functioning. So they had a 5 foot on either side. We got a 5 foot and about a 2 foot. So it's just a little bit wider, but it's within our budgeted amount, and that's what we planned. So that's what Pat and I have discussed. You know, move forward. That's our budget. That's what our plan is. However, there were some other options to discuss.
And if there were an inclination to consider one of those other options, well, again, bad night to ask, how about another $300,000? Or do you consider launching the special assessment process? Excuse me.
Bless you.
I think I'm allergic to special assessments.
Yeah, you're on a roll. You're on a roll here, Pat.
And if you wanted to launch that, we'd recommend doing that immediately, because there's some timeliness issues. You know, they got to get going with final design to get the plans together, because this is a partially state-funded project.
That's correct. We're supposed to be submitting some final documents, the first round of them, by the end of the month, and then September rolls more. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
We just didn't want to let this opportunity pass by without bringing it to city council and presenting the ideas. And
Well, go ahead, Bob. I'll
So,
defer to you.
their standard or a typical width for a bicycle path on the shoulder of a road? What do they have on Lakeshore Drive, south of town? Is that 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet?
10 feet.
That's a 10-foot bike lane?
Yeah, 2 foot on either side, so it's a 14-foot wide footprint. The 2 foot needs, a minimum, needs to be between the roadway and the path. It can be larger, but
I mean, on Lakeshore Drive, they painted a line on the pavement, and I think they widened the shoulder of the road. I'm not talking about the bike path away from the road. I'm talking about the shoulder of the road where the actual street bicyclists ride, because they don't want to put up with the baby carriages. So how wide is that?
I think it's 5 feet.
Okay, 5 feet is, I can see where that's an uncomfortable width, especially with traffic on this road. But if it were like 6 feet or 7 feet, it would probably be much more comfortable. You might add a couple of feet to this 30-foot original. As I understand it, City of Ferrisburg is committed to putting the road back as is. Is that correct?
My understanding at this point it is, yes.
And so really the section we're talking about, which would be obvious for us to talk about, is the Grand Haven stretch of road where we've been asked to look at wider cross sections and doing more things. And the other question I had for Pat, and I guess there was some discussion of that at the open house, which I didn't attend, was if we put in a parking lane, who's going to benefit from the parking lane? That's all private property along there. There's no beach access for the public. It's going to be put in primarily or almost exclusively to benefit people who own properties along the west side of the road. I mean, that's just the way I see it, is that the parking lane would be for guests of those homes along that road, because there's no reason for anybody else to park there. So I guess my thinking is that the 10-foot wide driving lanes don't encourage excess speed, whereas if you made them wider lanes, they would. 9-foot wide travel lane would probably be inappropriate for this road. If we could expand the shoulders and make them better for bicyclists and pedestrians at a relatively minimal cost, and that option was not given to us in these three. But if you just widen that shoulder by enough to make it a little bit more comfortable, then what would that do to our budget? And would that be probably not $100,000 more, but maybe some other number? So, I mean, do you have any idea what that might be? I mean, I realize you're kind of just standing there not prepared to answer that question, but if we just looked at it as better shoulders for pedestrian bicycle traffic and the travel lanes, then where are we at?
We'd have to run the numbers. I mean, I couldn't throw a number out there. I mean, the 5 foot either side, like I said, we have 5 foot on one side right now, so, you know, they're talking about not being comfortable, but we're also talking about trying to stay within a budget, so.
Well, I mean, 5 foot on one side and next to nothing on the other means both directions of traffic are on one side.
Yes,
which
that's correct.
is not really correct. Even if you had 5 feet on each side, you're better off than you are today.
Yep, we have the funds to improve it a little bit, we didn't know if the, you know, it was the council had the appetite to improve it significantly.
I mean, I guess I'm thinking that just, if a parking lane were seriously being considered, I think that would be something to especially assess for, because I don't see a general public benefit to it. But the bike lanes and pedestrian lanes, yeah, I can see a general public benefit there. And there again, you know, we're looking at, we've got a budget, we've got a certain amount of money, and we promised to put back the road, a better drained, better paved road than is there, but not necessarily a wider road.
But we're adding another bike lane on the other side, though, we don't have today.
And if you did that, I think that'd be an improvement.
And it is quite an improvement, what we're gonna be doing already, right? We're having two.
And I guess my question is there something we can do with that 5 feet to make it better then?
5 feet is pretty decent if you ride on it. My son rides a sport bike, you know. That's the reason why they have them. They don't ride on the bike paths because it ruins their bikes, and they ride on the bike paths because of all the ruts and everything. But going down Lake Shore, the 5 feet is plenty. If you ride according to the rules, which is supposed to be single file, which is plenty of room for a bike. Then you got the guys that don't follow the rules, which want to run 2, 3 abreast, which that's their own problem. But 5 feet, we're adding 5 feet on the east and the 5 foot on the west. It's going to be quite an improvement for them. I think there'll be plenty of room for them. I'm willing to stick with what was proposed, to be honest with you, the 5 feet and 5 feet.
Well,
I think we're going to be doing very well for them.
I would even advocate a wider bike path on the west side, on the east side of the road than the west side of the road.
6 foot?
Well, because the east side of the road has all the driveway, or the west side of the road has all the driveways, or 90% of the driveways, I would say. And those driveways are coming out of Four Dunes, so the visibility is not all that great. So if I was going to ride a bike or push a baby buggy or walk with friends, I would do it on the east side of the road, where I'm not going to get hit by somebody coming out of their driveway if they can't see me. So I would encourage not having it even, but having a wider bike path and walking path or stroller path on the east side of the road than on the west side of the road. But I don't know if you can do that.
Well, let me make one clarification. These 5 foot are 5 foot lanes on either side, or 5 foot paved shoulders. This is an MDOT project, so if it's going to be a bike path, it needs to be 10 foot with a 2 foot separation.
Okay.
And 14 foot thing, 14 foot.
So we need to not call it a bike path and just call it a shoulder?
Shoulders.
Paved shoulders,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, so we'll adjust our language here.
Absolutely.
So, but as far as it going past a 5 foot paved shoulder, I'd have to look at the logistics that I don't have the answer. Maybe it's just something that our local match pays for. I don't know if there's any regulation against that, to make it a 7 on one and 5 on the other. I don't know. It's something I'd have to check into.
Okay. That's driving the street.
We didn't discuss that about bikes or strollers.
Right now.
Right.
Just a paved.
Space.
Yeah.
For people.
I could see going wider on one side. That would be nice if we could, but whatever the cost,
I mean, on the east side.
On the east side.
On the east side.
Yeah.
I have to agree, because there is a lot of egresses on the other side.
So then you'd make the other 3 feet or 2 feet on the other side and just let out. Otherwise, you're going to add to the cost of it. I'm just asking you.
We got to know what the cost is.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. But I think the east side does need to be. I think that's the side to encourage people to walk on and use their bikes, is on the east side, definitely. Because like Jerry said, there's a lot of them driveways are coming right straight down to the road, you know, and
Make it 10 feet on that side and 1
foot on the other.
Yeah, one
There's
side,
your
then
sliver.
you can put 2 lanes and then go which way they want.
Whatever.
Got plenty of room.
Yeah, I'm not a big
You
fan
still
of.
keep the same width and same cost.
Right.
Yeah, one thing, we have a 30-foot footprint on the road right of way, you know, in a 36, we can cut it up any way you want, you know, to manage that. It's just the cost is 30 foot's this wide, you know, this much, and 36 is this. And there's some dynamics. The wider we get, the more expensive. That's why the 41-foot
Okay.
option's only 5 foot more, but it's $500,000 more.
Yeah, almost.
And that's because we started getting to some of the dunes and some retaining walls. There's going to be retaining walls on the project for sure. But you're getting some real significant ones that you see around dunes as soon as we get wider and wider. We have plenty of right of way there to work in. We can do what we want. It just gets expensive to work in it. So 30 foot,
3 feet
32
on one
foot.
side, 7 feet on the other.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I'll jump on the bandwagon of the east side being a little bit larger. I also like the idea in light of the potential for, I think there's a development going to go in around the private lake back there with some sort of campground, and it'd be, which would also be on the east side, and maybe there, in the future there'd be some sort of connection to a little bit wider path, footpath. No, wait, what are we calling it?
Paved shoulders.
Paved shoulders.
Paved shoulder.
Yeah,
Paved
the paved
shoulders.
shoulders on that side.
Careful there, what you
Yeah,
call
be
it.
careful. With the option B and the sentiment of if we're going to do it right, I appreciate that very much. But given we've been talking about funding and everything else, and I think in light of Bob's comment that for certain the parking arrangement would most benefit the private residences. There's not that much public going on out there as far as public parking goes. It's not like parking alongside the state park where you can hop over the fence and head down to the beach. So I see that as definitely a benefit for the private property owners. So if they're interested in some additional benefit with a wider road, then yeah, I think it's reasonable to look toward them to pay that cost. I just did quick math on that one. There's about 75 properties, give or take, along the road in the portion that we're doing. And I think the difference in price with that parking there is about $320,000, $310,000 or something like that. It works out to about $4,000 per property. If that were over 20 years, I don't know how we do a special assessment with interest, that's $250 a year. So if those homeowners were open to that, and I don't know how they'd let us know in the next 24 days, but that would be the way to do it. But as for general city funds, I think we got to keep our commitment to them to do what we promised, and if we can widen the east side, cool, all for it. There you go.
Heard enough?
Yeah, that's a great work session. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for putting so much on there for us.
9 o'clock.
Too late for ice cream.
Council meeting.
all right, I think we are,
You guys did bring your sleeping bags.
we are ready to move to the consent agenda.
This is to approve the special work session minutes and regular council meeting minutes of June 18th and July 16th, 2018. Approve the bills memo in the amount of $3,316,683.70. Approve a resolution of appreciation to Holly Johnson for her unprecedented contribution to our city and to declare August 4th, 2018 as Holly Johnson Day. Approve a resolution of appreciation to Vester Davis Jr. Designate Human Resources Manager Bonnie Suchecki as the officer delegate to attend the MERS 2018 annual meeting. Designate Mayor Jerry McCaleb as the voting delegate and Mayor Pro Tem Mike Fritz as alternate for the City of Grand Haven at the 2018 Michigan Municipal League annual meeting on September 21st, 2018. Approve the election equipment maintenance intergovernmental agreement with Ottawa County, Michigan in the annual amount of $1,011.11 per year over the next 9 years, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. Approve a resolution of a 15-year recognition to Pat McGinnis, and approve a grant from the Home Depot Foundation in the amount of $24,000 to help support the Reimagine project. And authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on any of these consent agenda items? And if not, we
Or
are.
maybe one, Pat McGinnis
Yeah, 15
resolution.
years.
You sure we ought to do that?
Oh, he does have it, okay.
He's already got it, all right.
Not official yet.
Hold
The
on
other
to it
one,
tight
the other
just
one
in
is
case.
Vester Davis.
I think a 3-2 vote,
Oh, I already handed it to him, I guess we have to go through it then.
Yeah, we did Holly last week, so it was, okay.
That's all right.
All right. So we are ready to vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Ruger?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Congrats, Pat.
It's official now.
Here's now.
All right. All right, at this point, I will open the public hearing regarding the submission of an application to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority for a $160,000 grant for home purchase and rehab for the city and township of Grand Haven, city of Ferrisburg, and Spring Lake Township residents. Anybody would like to address that issue? Please step forward, Gordon.
Good evening. Well, I know that this isn't as exciting as a special assessment public hearing, but it was exciting enough for me to make it a date night for my wife.
Well, how
State your name and where you're from.
How special is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, Gordon Gallagher, Spring Lake Township.
Very good. You're on TV, so
Spring Lake Township is proud to be a partner with the city of Grand Haven, and our board has been supportive of the efforts of the housing department, and I know that there aren't a lot of times when people come to a public hearing about a MISHDA grant application, but we wanted to show our support at the public hearing and say we're very supportive of this application, and also to let you know that we will also be submitting a letter of support so that you can include that if need be. So thank you very much for your efforts and for the department's efforts, and other than that, have a great night.
All right, thanks, Gordon. Anyone else?
Rhonda Klein from Neighborhood Housing Services, submitting the application. And I just wanted to let you know, I know you probably know from the other council notes, but this is actually a really awesome grant that we got this time. So first time we were awarded these funds since 2014. And when MISHDA did a shift and there was a huge funding shift, these are the funds that were significantly reduced. This is a very, very competitive grant. There's $1 million to spread across the entire state of Michigan. And for us here in Grand Haven to be awarded $160,000 of that $1 million is actually a huge accomplishment for us. We're really excited. The last time that we applied, we were denied. So to just be able to accomplish it this time, we changed a couple of things. When we had these grant funds in the past, we've had to designate a certain area within the city. So last time the funds were only for Easttown in the city of Grand Haven. And the approach that we took this time was we expanded and we included Grand Haven, City and Township, Ferrisburg, and Spring Lake Township. Unfortunately not the village, but and so we kind of went with the idea that, this is a really nice area. It's a great area to live. We don't have blighted communities. So with $160,000, that actually allows us to do 4 projects. So 4 houses, 4 properties can be improved. And it increases the property value of not only that individual property, but immediately in the entire neighborhood. And so that was the approach that we took, and MISHDA is supporting that and giving us the funds. So we're really excited about it. Excuse me, sorry. And actually, we're going to be able to do 2 home purchase and rehab, like it says there. That's where the purchaser gets up to $10,000 for down payment and up to $30,000 for rehab. I'm sorry, $20,000 for rehab. So they get a total of $30,000. And then there's going to be 2 homeowner rehab, where a current income eligible homeowner will be able to get up to $30,000 in rehab for their home. So it's 2 types of projects, 4 in total. So.
All right.
very good.
Sounds good. Thank you, Rhonda. You bet. Anyone else like to address this issue? If not, we will close the public hearing, and I'll ask Linda to read the agenda item C.
This is to authorize the submission of an application to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority for a $160,000 grant for home purchase and rehabilitation for the city and township of Grand Haven, city of Ferrysburg, and Spring Lake Township residents, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded,
Just,
and we
just
just
to,
had that explanation.
just to verify, I mean, and maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, but it's $30,000 a piece for the two purchase and rehab projects, and $30,000 or $40,000 for the two homeowner rehab projects.
It's 4 projects, 2 are homeowner rehab and 2 are home purchase rehab.
Okay, because in our memo it has $40,000 for the home rehab projects.
Some of that money is department revenue.
Okay. So of the 160,000, there's 120. I see. So, but that 160,000 is spread out over 2 years, or is it, it's not double dip on that money? Oh. That's a shame. Okay. And Spring Lake Village is not included, even though it's within Spring Lake Township. Okay.
Very good.
I recognize this is across different municipalities, and the partnership is wonderful. For the city of Grand Haven, I'm just going right back to if this is adopted. On the Housing Affordability Task Force, point number 3 was those who live in Grand Haven should be able to remain in Grand Haven as they age. And the rehab part of that would fall right under that category. So if that's what happens, if that's where the funds go, that's pretty cool.
That's why we chose to not stick to solely the HPR, which we did with the last grant. That was in fact
Both.
Purchasers and.
Yeah, great.
Good work.
Yeah.
All right.
Come up to the microphone because they can't hear you. At
Oh,
home when
I'm
you're
sorry.
talking.
Oh, yeah.
When you're talking. No, that's fine.
Any other comments or questions?
No.
We will vote.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes. All righty, moving on to new business.
First item is to award the engineering contract to Ebenmarsh for the city's 2019 sanitary sewer cured-in-place plastic pipe rehabilitation project. That's a long one. And the not-to-exceed amount of $82,010, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
So, second.
Moved and seconded. And Derek?
So this is an easy one. We have money budgeted for this one.
I was just going to ask you, is this a budgeted item?
Yeah, that's
Came in under budget. Yeah, this is a portion of all the sewer that we need to, we can rehabilitate underground and not rip up the road.
Yep.
And so we bring these in large groups for cost savings. They're specialized techniques, if you will, and contractors that do that. So this is phase 1 of it. And we're going to get the engineering started and actually do it in the spring.
All right. Awesome. Any questions?
No, these needed to be done for a long time, and I'm glad to see we're getting them done.
Yep.
It's a good project and
smooth
long overdue, so thanks, Derek.
No problem.
And thanks for not adding stuff to it.
You're coming in under budget, right?
Yeah.
And oh, yeah, that's the
Yeah,
best part.
it comes in under budget, and hopefully that when it comes to the project, comes in under budget. Would be nice.
Yeah, this is just the engineering.
This is just the engineering
Yes.
part of it, which is
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
But in the long run, doing it this way is a much cost savings than tearing the streets up and replacing the pipes. It's better off, it's called preventative. We're doing it ahead of time doing all this, and it works out very well. It's helped us enormously in our infrastructure.
Absolutely, and we're going underneath Beacon Boulevard, underneath the highway,
Right.
and coating those pipes, and
Yes.
great project to do. It's better than breaking Beacon Boulevard up, yeah. Makes me stutter, Mike, yeah. Just thinking about it.
We're getting all excited.
Thinking about breaking it up, yeah.
Break that up and have all those traffic, how the traffic stop and reroute it through the neighbors, right?
All right. Any other questions, comments? Not, we will vote.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. All right, next item.
Next item is to approve the equipment replacement purchase of a fire rescue brush truck in the not-to-exceed amount of $24,113 from Preferred Ford and $4,667.81 from Hoekstra Equipment. The administration recommends approval.
I need a motion
So moved.
and support.
Support.
Okay, Matt.
I know these are coming from Ford, but they are Dodges. I did see that, so.
They are.
Very good. They're made out of steel and not aluminum. I'm working on them right now. I have all the special equipment to take care of aluminum, and then they rip really easy.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it happen. So I'm glad to see you got Dodges.
Okay, well, good evening, council. My name is Matt Wade, Streets and Utilities Manager, Public Works. And the brush truck is a 26-year-old truck that is in need of replacement. We budgeted it to be replaced this year. We're under budget by a few $1,000s, so it is, like I said, it's definitely in need of replacement. It is a truck that gets used to access all the areas that the large pump truck can't make it to. It also pulls our ATV unit around from place to place, and a lot of our big events such as Coast Guard and 4th of July, it comes in handy, so.
All right. I like the under budget part.
It's under budget, and it's got a Hemi.
Yeah, that's got it, okay. What else does anybody need, right? All right. Any other comments? I think we'll vote.
Bruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. And next item. I see Matt isn't going anywhere.
Next item is to approve the equipment replacement purchase of a 3/4 ton truck in the not-to-exceed amount of $23,906 from Preferred Ford and $6,321.80 from Monroe Truck and Auto Accessories.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
And support. All right. Tell us about this 3/4 ton truck. Whoops, I'm sorry, Pat.
I just wanted to make sure we clarified, and we'll get it right in the minutes, that it is preferred Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge. It's not preferred Ford.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
I
what I
had it over my head, but now I'm noticing
Oh,
it is.
okay, that makes sense.
We just get used to it because Ford's the first one you see when you go down that way, but it is, there are 3 different dealerships.
All right.
Big question.
Please, Linda is on it.
So this truck is the same situation. It's a 17-year-old truck that is used in DPW's day-to-day operations. It pulls our asphalt trailers around, our roller around. It does a lot of our snow plowing on dead ends and parking lots all winter long. So it's in significant need of replacement, and it's time. It's also been budgeted and is under budget.
Wow, 2 in a row.
We're ending on the right note here, man.
Yeah.
Under budget.
Where's all that audience to hear this?
Look how old these trucks are. I mean, they're old trucks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Got a lot of use out of them.
Yep.
Do they make them like that anymore?
I hope so.
Me too. All right, any comments on this particular truck?
Nope.
If not,
It's got a Hemi also.
it's kind of heavy. All right.
I'm ready.
I think we're ready to vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Bruger?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. Thanks, Matt. Next item.
Next item is to approve a resolution to release the right of reverter for Lot 9 of Air Park Industrial Plat, also known as 1865 Industrial Park Drive, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And support?
In support.
All right. I got to learn what a reverter was, the right of the reverter. Pat, would you want to explain why we need to do this?
Yes, when the city owned all this property out there by the airport and also in our other industrial parks, when there was demand for those parcels, we would put a standard clause in that if you don't do what you say you're going to do within a certain amount of time, the property could revert to the city. So in all of the cases, I think they built what they said they were going to build. If you go out and look at our industrial areas, every one is sold, everyone has a significant development on it, and they did do what they said they were going to do. And in the regular course of business, the city got busy, the owners got busy, and nobody ever returned and said, let's remove this right of reverter from the deed. Many of these properties have turned over and changed hands, and they've never called it into question. In this circumstance, through the financing of the new owner, they want to see that right of reverter taken out. So it's really a formality. Clearly, what was proposed to be built there was built there. And we just double checked it, and they met the setbacks and the architectural standards and the zoning rules and built what they were supposed to build way back in the 80s. Just never took the reverter off.
All right.
So would there be any continuing effect of the reverter if, let's say, the buildings that were there were removed and something else was put there? Would there be value to the city of having that reverter still in existence? Or would it be unenforceable at that point?
I'm not, I can check with the attorney, because I don't know, but it would seem to me that not, that the intent of the reverter was us doing an arm's length transaction to that buyer. That buyer saying, well, I'm going to build this factory on there, and we said, well, okay, you make sure you do. If you don't, we're going to take it back. And so he built what he said he was going to build, so deal over. I don't think we'd want to go back and say, well, okay, but we ought to make sure if you ever sell it in 50 years or 100 years, and somebody else wants to do something different with it, they can't. You got to come back to us and say, I don't think that was our intent. You might want to consider changing that now, but it wouldn't seem to be consistent with the council's intent back when we sold it and they placed this reverter on the property.
So why, when IVC Industrial Coatings, the city reacquired title and then conveyed title to Lakeshore, why did that happen?
I think IVC overbought and then decided to sell to Lakeshore. IVC's next door. I wasn't here, so I'm speculating.
And I don't recall this either, and I don't even know what year this happened, but at that point, the reverter was apparently invoked, and we reacquired title and sold it again, or conveyed it again. So was there...
to probably make sure the new guy built what he said he was going to build.
So nothing was on that parcel when IVC conveyed it back to the city?
Assuming it was vacant, yes. I've seen the building, and it's not that old of a building, which is why I assume that. We're all familiar with the Lakeshore. We ended up selling them a little piece of airport property so that they could expand. They doubled their footprint, at which time we didn't put a right of reverter on that. We just, knew that they were going to do what they said they wanted to do because they needed to expand. I could certainly get answers to those questions if that's compelling and you want to know before you vote on this.
Well, I'm just curious if we're going to give up a right of reverter, if it was enforceable and had any value to the city, that maybe we ought to know that. And if we're convinced that it's obsolete, no longer in effect, then it's just extra paperwork for somebody to deal with. But once we give it up, it's gone forever. So that's my only reason for caution.
I appreciate that, but I do believe there's no value to the city in keeping it. It did what it was intended to do, and we no longer need it.
I would think, in reading this, that it was vacant property and they were to build something on it to enhance the economy of the city, and that over the last, how many years, since the 70s or 80s, that's been done?
I guess the point of my questioning was that going forward, if the site were to be scraped, if it were to become a vacant lot again because buildings were removed, would that right of reverter give us any input into what goes back there, make sure it goes back in accordance with, if something were built there, it would go back in accordance with what the intent was? That may be a remote possibility.
Yeah.
By the same token, I know we've passed on other things and deed restrictions, covenants and such on other parcels, and later wondered why we did that. So that's my only reason for caution. It'll be a forever thing once we say no, or once we say it's gone.
And I'm okay with saying it's gone.
I did ask the attorney about it, and he was very clear that there was, you know, the conditions subsequent to the sale were met.
Were met.
So I don't think if we tried to do that, I don't think we could prevail. I don't think it would have any force, because they did what they said they were going to do. You know, they had to start construction within 1 year and build within 3 years, and they did that. So I don't think it really exists anymore anyways. This is a formality, and many transactions I think have occurred out there, and they've not gotten hung up on this because it's already there. It's clear that it's gone, and it really is clear it's gone. If we ever tried to claim that property, I don't think we could. But sometimes mortgage companies, lenders are very particular, and they say, okay, but we want the city to acknowledge that, so that's why we're being asked to sign this. It's just a formality. I don't think we're giving anything up.
Well, if it's not enforceable, then it's not worth pursuing.
All right, I think we're ready to vote.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes.
Ruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes. All right, item E.
Next item is to accept a proposal from Grand Valley State University to conduct a study of deer movement in the city of Grand Haven for a cost not to exceed $5,500 and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there support? It's been moved and seconded. And this is the proposal from Grand Valley to study the habits and deer movement in our forests. So we need to decide if this is a worthy study, and to find out, you know, how they travel, where they travel, where they live. Maybe find out how many, you know, what the numbers are of what we have, and in the long run, to see what the effect is on our forests. So, comments? For myself, I think it's just interesting to have this kind of information, because I don't think the DNR, another thing I've ever read, has gone into this much of a detailed study of deer habits. So I think it would be interesting to know something about the habit of our four-footed friends.
Well, I recall when we had Grand Valley doing the spotlight surveys, their follow-up proposal from the group we talked to at that time was to put tracking collars on deer and follow their movements. And at the time I thought, well, that would be interesting information to have. But as I recall, it came with a pretty substantial price tag. And we all said, well, no, we're not going to go there. And we didn't. I'm generally not one to turn down objective information, and I won't turn it down this time either. But I do think that reading the first paragraph of the proposal, when they talk, basically they want to know where the deer are so that you can more effectively remove the deer. So I think that's the real point here, regardless of what else has been said, because it's written into this. Even at that, if we're going to continue culling deer, we ought to make sure we're doing the right deer so that we get, so you get any benefit you're going to get from it is more effective, and that you don't take out deer which aren't really causing any harm. So I'll support this proposal for those reasons, that I think it's good to have information. It's good to have objective information. I'm going to assume that it will be that, because I think I have a lot of respect for Grand Valley faculty, and that I hope everything is being done for the right reasons and applied that way. And we'll follow the data where it goes.
And I'm grateful to Grand Valley for being willing to take on the project at a seemingly very reasonable price to the city, and look forward to receiving, as Bob said, the objective data they've got that they get out of this. So thank you to Grand Valley. That's all I got.
I think it's kind of nice that Grand Valley comes alongside of us and does things like this, and I appreciate the effort they put into this, and the cost is not that much, so I'm completely supportive of it.
I have to agree with Bob on a lot of the comments he said here. Hopefully it doesn't end up being just to using it for where we call deer at. Hopefully it's a constructive thing. We tried to, before, to hire someone to come in and do this for us, and it never got a full, complete support as far as wanting to spend money toward it. So this is actually a good way, at least we can get a study, get some exact numbers. But I'm just hoping it's not just to identify deer in large areas so they can do their culling in the areas that they want to cull.
I really do think that this is, on Grand Valley's part, scientific research, where you don't have to collar the deer. They go through the deer droppings and decide, who's who, and what their movements are. And again, like I said, I don't think the DNR has that kind of data. I think this would be a really interesting scientific study, and you don't know what you don't know until you have somebody shows you data, what the movements are, what the range is, what other information that we can glean out of this in order to better understand what we're dealing with. I think that would give us better data, better information to make decisions in the future. So I really don't think that Grand Valley has an ulterior motive. I think they're just wanting to do some scientific research. So I think we're ready to vote.
Manetza?
Yes.
Ruger?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
McCaleb?
Yes. Okay. Report by City Council. Who wants to start?
The hour is late. I will say happy Coast Guard. It was great.
All right.
Thoughts and prayers to the families who lost loved ones on Sunday, excuse me.
Well, echo that, both points. The Coast Guard Festival was a great success. I think it went very well. I had a lot of fun with it. Sunday was quite a tragic day. I was down there, I heard all the sirens. I went down to the beach to see what was up in the afternoon, and I saw when they pulled the last victim out. I also saw the human chains trying to sweep the water for victims, and the waves were crashing over these people. It struck me that all these responders, whether they're the police officers, the paramedics, or the bystanders on the beach who were trying to help, they put themselves at great risk to try to rescue people who went out in the water when the red flag was flying, when the conditions were obviously bad. And I think that people need to be responsible about how they approach the water. They shouldn't go in the water and endanger other people who come to rescue them. I was very impressed with the rescue efforts. I'm very sorry for those who had their losses. But it really comes down to, you got to use some good personal judgment. I think that there was a lot of risk being taken, and a lot of people who tried to help also took risks. So hopefully people will learn a lesson from this. I did comment too. I saw Sergeant Adams down there doing CPR on one of the victims, and I told him, great job, did very well. Unfortunately, that victim didn't make it, but they try very hard. They do the best they can to rescue people on the beach, and they commit themselves, and everybody pitched in and helped, and that was very noble.
I also want to say to the victims and their families, or that not only the ones that died because of the drowning, but the ones also in the hospital, that our thoughts and prayers are with those people and their families. And it's terrible when you have such a great time, and then we have those tragic accidents and fatalities that occurred. So, but and that does kind of wreck the happiness and the great time we had at the festival, and it was a great festival. It was, like Bob said, a great success. I had a great time there. And again, Public Works, Public Safety did a great job out there for us. And I want to thank both Public Safety and Public Works, because they put a lot of effort into this. Things went pretty smooth, what I've seen anyways, and I just want to say thank you for all your efforts and all the time and all the stress and everything else that went in with this. I know there's a lot. I've been there, done it, you know. So, and but you guys did a great job again. So thanks a lot. But the festival went great. A lot of people here in town, and it was a good time. And I didn't have very few bad comments about what happened here. And the parking, I guess, was one thing. Where people said they had to park on the other side of the highway, but that's minor, you know. I mean, that's nothing. So, but I think overall the festival went really great, you know, except for the fatalities that we had. But other than that, we had a great time. The city crews worked fabulously out there and did a wonderful job. One thing I did notice though, and it's been there for a while, and I've noticed it, and on the corner of by the park, on the corner of 5th and Columbus, we have water. Maybe the southwest corner, but we have water right there by the where people cross the street, right by the approach, and it's a puddle that's been there for a while. And it keeps getting, I think it's a little bigger now than it used to be. So I think maybe if we can find a way to get a drain in there, a French drain or something, to get rid of that water. You know, it's when people go back and forth across the street and have to go through a pretty good sized puddle, I don't think we need that.
Well, we got that fixed because we're going to make it 2 ways, so the water will run down the other way.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, Pat. All right. Okay. Okay. All right.
Well, that was easy.
Oh, there you go. That was a simple fix.
That was a simple fix. Yeah, there you go. Yes. Didn't cost us a dime, did it?
Eric, we'll take a look at that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'd jump over that puddle.
Right. Make sure you
cross it every day.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to get rid of that water right there.
Right.
So maybe you can fix that, Derek, huh? Cool.
He's on it.
Okay, all right. So that's all I have, thanks.
I want to say thank you to the City of Grand Haven itself. I mean, not only the public safety and public works, but the staff also, for everybody that contributed to the Coast Guard Festival. There's a lot of things that we don't see that goes on behind the scenes that these guys do. And you got to say thank you for all the hard work that they put in. I know public safety has really worked their butt off during that, especially on Saturday. And Friday and Saturday nights are really not a fun time to be around. I'm up late at night, I walk around, and I see some of the things that they have to put up with. When you get a large crowd like we have, it's very difficult to keep under control, but I would say they did a fantastic job of doing their jobs and making sure that we are safe here. And Public Works, I've seen them down there early in the morning. I go down there sometimes, and we've seen the picture that Pat sent, but I've been down there before and talked to them as they're down there power scrubbing the streets down there, making sure that everything is clean. So kudos to you guys. You did a fantastic job of making sure that our city was bright and shiny and safe. So, and also my thoughts and prayers out to the victims yesterday. It's a tragedy. Anytime you lose anybody around here, they're part of our family too. So that's all I have this time.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it was like, of course, Coast Guard Festival is always, you know, the highlight of the year. It's what we, you know, kind of aim toward, that week of celebration and just saying thanks to our men and women in the Coast Guard and what they, what they do for us. And this year was, had an extra special meeting as it was the 75th anniversary of the sinking of the Escanaba and the loss of 101 local residents, honorary citizens, citizens of Grand Haven. And so at the library found, nearly 100 descendants of these young men that were on that boat, when the 101 of them perished when the ship went down. And so one of the most interesting things was talking to these descendants, these families and friends of the men that died on that boat, and what their family stories were, what their impressions were, the stories that they told about these, their particular hero that was lost. And it was very interesting to talk to them, the emotion that they still carried, the family stories about who these young men were. It was very gratifying, and besides the fact that to every one of them that said, we've been around your city, we've driven around, everything we see, this city looks amazing. So that is a tribute to our citizens that take such good care of their property, their homes, their yards, and that people come in here from all around the country, from South Carolina to San Diego. They're here and they're looking around and they're totally impressed with not only the reception that they got, but just the look of the community. And that is a tribute to every citizen. It's also a huge tribute to our public works guys and our public safety that make this city shine and make it such a safe place to be. And so thank you to, I hope you pass that on to your employees, that it's one of the best things to do, to listen to people that come here to visit and just can't say enough good things about our city. And and also, I want to echo that, the loss of life is just so tragic. You come from the high of the celebration to Sunday afternoon, getting text after text about, the tragedies that are happening on our beach. And that was just like turn the world upside down. But, and I know, how it is when, I had a family member that was taken suddenly like that in an accident. And I know, it's devastating at the moment. You come to have fun at the beach and you go home with one less person. And then you have the aftermath of that. It doesn't just go away. That's something that family carries with them. And so it's a very painful time and a very painful thing. But life goes on for the rest of us. So, but it's just, very, very, it's very meaningful and gives you a lot to think about. So we're a very lucky city, and but your heart goes out to the loss of those that they didn't make it home on Sunday afternoon. So at this point, I will ask Pat to give his city manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item is regarding the Sims Power Plant closure discussion that is ongoing and continues. We have a town hall meeting planned. City Council expressed a desire to make a concerted effort to gather feedback directly from the citizens, not to try to educate them or try to persuade them to make one decision or support one direction, but to ask them what they felt about the future of energy or energy production in the city. So we've scheduled 2 town hall meetings for 2 weeks from now. The April 15th is a Wednesday, April 16th is a Thursday. I'm sorry, what am I saying?
April?
August.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, wait a minute.
Getting late.
One of those A months.
Thank you. August. The 15th and the 16th. On the 15th, we're going in the evening, and then on the 16th in the late afternoon, just to try to give everybody a chance to show up. We are limiting attendance to city residents and customers of BLP because I believe that's who the city council is interested in hearing from at this point. We will be doing I keep calling it Option Finder, but Ashley corrects me, it's not the name of the software, the app. Poll Everywhere. Ashley told you it's called Poll Everywhere, and it is an app that people can log into and then provide their answers to questions in real time. So if you have questions, I've got a list of questions I've provided to you. I'll send those around again, and you can add to them. If there's things you would like to know, what's on the minds of your residents, let me know what those are, and we'll add those. We don't want it to be just all question, 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 question. So there'll be questions and then follow-up. When we see what the response in the room is, we'll ask, well, why do you feel that way? So we can try to get behind where people's opinions are coming from. And we've got a professional facilitator coming in to help us work through that discussion and hopefully help you inform the next decision you need to make, which could be proposed resolution that, I had a copy of that in your packet. We met with representatives from the BLP and the DDA a couple of weeks ago and had some discussion about the snow melt. It started out to be a discussion about the snow melt. And the one consensus that everybody had is that everybody would like to know what is it that the city council expects. How about offering us some direction? So I think there's a need to fill a vacuum to direct the process to move it forward, and I think the direction is going to need to come from city council. So perhaps after this town hall meeting, I got some feedback since this proposed resolution was in the packet. I did get some feedback about what these now therefore be it resolved should be, and some very good ideas. And rather than wordsmith it tonight, maybe we can wordsmith it after the town hall meetings with, rather than assume right now that there's going to be some direction such as future local generation of power. Maybe your constituents won't insist on that or won't say that's an important thing to them. Maybe there'll be some other level of direction that you'll want to include in that resolution. So I thought we could hold off on that resolution until after the town hall meeting or the meetings. And then also the third party, I was asked to go out and find a consultant that could come in and review all of the information that's been presented and offer an independent second opinion. A couple city council members, so we should go out and find somebody that would have that capacity. So I have located a firm that seems very capable of doing that. I've gotten a proposal from them. It's in your packet. Again, I don't know if it's up to you. This is just city manager reports. You can tell me when you want me to put that on the agenda, or if you want me to put that on the agenda. Maybe you want to wait until after the town hall meetings and then offer that direction, but I stand ready to take that direction.
Okay. Well, I personally think it'd be interesting to have we've talked about an independent third-party analysis for some time. I think it'd be valuable. I don't think the price of this is exorbitant in relation to the possibility of cost savings depending on what we do in the future. So we can wait till after the town hall meetings, but I think it would be it'd be valuable to get our independent analysis and give us options as we go into the future. Because that is really options is to me what we need to be looking at. But there may be more than one. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. I agree with Jerry. I'd like to get this thing going too. I think we need to look at this option. If we can convert that plant, I mean, according to what they wanted to do, they wanted to, bulldoze that plant over, and but what they did say that the building was sound. So, and if we can convert it over to natural gas or something else, but I think it'd be great to get another consulting firm in there and give us some options. I would like to have this brought forward at our next meeting and get this on the agenda. I'd like to get them on the calendar so when they close the plant, again, when they shut the plant down, that were on their calendar, and they come in here and take a look at it and give us some options. I would hate to miss the opportunity if they get too busy, to get so they for some reason, if we delayed it too much, that we couldn't get them to come in when the plant's down. So I would like to put it on the next council agenda.
Yeah, I think that I'm very much looking forward to these town hall meetings. Thank you, Pat, and everyone who's going to put forth an effort to ensure that it is local residents and BLP customers who are there and who are giving input. Appreciate the outside interest in the future of the Sims plan and the future of power generation in Grand Haven, but I think, as we've all said, this is an issue that we, the residents of Grand Haven, and the customers of the BLP really need to take a hard look at. So I'm looking forward to those two meetings. Timing-wise, as far as the another study of the BLP plant, I'm not sure that I'm in favor of paying more money to do that, but I'd like to get some input from the community. May sway my decision otherwise to vote for that, but I think I want to echo Denny and Jerry, and that it would be a good idea to get that on the agenda on the 20th. I think at that point it'll be after these two meetings. We'll have some good input from the community, and if it is going to receive a majority vote, then time is of the essence. Let's get that done. So I'd be in favor of us having a vote at the next agenda, up or down, on whether to go forward with an independent assessment for sure. Go.
Well, I agree with the town hall meetings. I'm looking forward to them and getting some direct feedback. I've talked to people who don't live within the city limits, who feel that they don't have a vote in the matter because they don't elect us. They don't elect the BLP, but they get to pay the rates. And the rates, as we've seen in some of the reports, are high because of the inefficiency of the Sims plant. So I'm looking forward to the feedback from these meetings, and also from the fact that it's going to be not just city residents, but all the ratepayers and all the customers of BLP. So that's good. The proposed resolution, I offered some thoughts on that directly to Pat. I'll have more. Because as it's written, it's not quite the way I think. So I'll offer some more opinions directly to Pat on that. Maybe we'll see it in the same form or some other. As far as the proposal from Wood, I look at this and I think $45,000 proposal to come out and confirm or not confirm stuff that we've seen, and largely in their scope of work, they say it looks like pretty thorough studies have been done. They're mainly interested in future options. That $45,000 would go a long ways toward buying another boiler or something for an alternative energy for the snow melt. So I don't think it's money well spent. But if it gives the rest of council comfort and the ability to make a decision, then I would go with it for that reason. Because I think the decision before us is, do we authorize the shutdown of the Sims plant? And then the decision about what to do for an alternative for future power generation, those decisions can follow based on the decision on the Sims plant. So these people have some experience in alternative conversions of plants and have shut down and decommissioning of plants and startup of plants. I did look at this. They mentioned a couple of projects they worked on, one of them being a power plant. The Dominion's Bremo Bluff Power Station in Virginia, which they say is the same size as Sims, but is actually about twice that size. And they converted to natural gas in 2014, and it was shut down earlier this year. So they got 4 years out of their natural gas conversion. Then they talked also about a biomass project in Cadillac, which apparently burns thousands of pounds of wood every year to make electricity, which probably not what we were looking for. But I don't doubt that they have ideas. They're a big company. I'm kind of surprised they were interested in our project. So they may have some ideas for us, but I think the immediate decision we need to make is probably, I don't think they're going to dispute it. So I go back to the idea that you could probably find a better way to spend $45,000. But there again, if it gets us to a decision point, then fine, I'll go with that.
Thanks, Bob. I'm looking forward to the town hall meetings. I've been wanting to have more public input. That's one of my big things, was making sure that the public has a say in this whole deal, what's going on and what they expect. I think this is going to be a great way for us to get it. I think we're heading in the right direction. And I'm with Josh, you know, if he wants to put that on the 20th, that'd be fine. But coming down to what the people say and what their expectations are and what they would like to do, I think that's what we need to do. They paid for everything. They're the ones that, they put, the city of Grand Haven put their lifeblood on line for that whole plant, and that's all. Let the people have a voice and let them say what they want to say. So let's move forward with it. So, okay. Looking forward to it, Pat.
Thank you. Second item has to do with the Robbins Road sewer tap fee. I just said I would bring it up during the council meeting. I offered just some explanation because over the years there's been discussion every year during the budget process about the sewer tap fees and whether or not there should be one. And you know, there's been one there for a long time. I know since I've been here. It's a $5,000 tap-in fee that you pay to essentially purchase your share of the sewer system. If you're not a user of the sewer system, you know, all of us use it and pay monthly bills, and we pay ready-to-serve fees. Well, we're not billing ready-to-serve fees to vacant properties that may have sewer available to them, but they're not using it. Perhaps we should, but we don't. So they sit there without using it, and when it's available and they're not connected to it, you know, generally that's why we have that sewer tap fee there. You know, it's a expected expense when somebody develops a property. They expect to pay something to buy into the sewer system, and we charge it. Often, Derek will negotiate when we've got a property owner that's maybe several hundred feet away and has to invest in, you know, extending a sewer lateral to get to their property, where there's not one that runs right by the front of the house with a Y in it that's ready to be tapped into. And sometimes they're paying upwards of $10,000 to get the sewer to their property. So to soften that blow, sometimes Public Works negotiates with those owners and says, well, you don't have to pay the whole fee. Maybe we allow all of it to not be paid or part of it. In this case, Derek plans on charging it, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that before we just went forward with that. The owner, and again, it doesn't have to do with special assessments, because we do a special assessment when you run new sewer down a street, and you charge the owners on both sides to pay for that actual pipe that's going down the street. You know, that $5,000 is for the whole system. You know, there's a lot behind that pipe that they're not paying for, and that's why we charge the tap-in fee. Because, you know, if you build your own septic field, you pay for that yourself. If you want to connect into the sewer system that we all own, there's a cost of membership, and that's that tap-in fee. So that's it. I don't know if anybody has any questions of Derek.
Yeah, we've had quite a few requests since I've been here, a lot more than I thought, to be honest with you. And like Pat said, some of those are, you know, they're in essence of 10 grand that they're paying to connect to the sewer system, and to charge them a $5,000 connection fee on top of that. We want them to be a customer. Just really isn't fair. So a lot of the stuff, these homes, they don't front the sewer, so it really doesn't rain past their properties. This one in particular, in Robbins Road, is a sewer main that runs right past it with a lateral that's already built and prepared for when that lot develops. And it hasn't participated, at least in our records, in any portion of the sewer system. So years ago, the city, you know, built this system, prepared to service this lot, and it just never did. So now's the time. We got an inquiry from a builder, you know, what is the fee, and they anticipate paying those fees. But there has been a couple of them already since I've been here that's just been the opposite, where they don't front it and really high fees, and I've communicated that with Pat, and we've agreed, you know, these are properties that shouldn't be charged that fee.
Okay, when I first started for the city, we didn't have those fees. Okay, those fees came about later on, And the fees started when someone didn't pay a special assessment, because when the sewer line goes past your property, you pay a special assessment on that sewer line, and you pay a special assessment to have a Y put in where you can hook up to. You pay that special assessment, okay? When somebody had to come into that sewer line, say 200 feet away, and pay for that line, they never paid a special assessment, so they were charged the $5,000 or maybe $2,000 back then. I'm just, just number out there. That number grew and grew over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, and that's where the charge came from, because the people that never paid a special assessment. So, but the trouble with that is those people never paid a special assessment, but they're paying for a line to go 200 feet to hook into that sewer, and that is a big expense. Okay, so now you have a vacant piece of property that vacant piece of property, whoever owned it, paid a special assessment on it for that sewer line and that connection. It's already been paid, and now you want to charge them $5,000 again. I am, and I understand that they're hooking onto a system that we already have built, but they've never used it yet. They haven't used that system yet. They're just hooking up to it now. So I am not in favor of charging that $5,000. Anyways, that's where I'm at.
We understand that, and I just wanted to be clear, because in the past we've said we usually waive it, and in this case we're not. And again, we don't charge it, but we should be charging it. When they're not using it and it's sitting there, we paid to put that in, and they have the opportunity to use it. They choose not to. Well, I still paid for that, and so did you and everybody else that is using it. So they're not using it, so now it's time for them to join up. And
But even that person that had to go that 200 feet, he should be charged that too, because he never used it either. It's the same thing. But how can you charge somebody that has to put thousands of dollars in a sewer system? Sometimes they even have to put a pump in their septic tank or whatever it is to pump it up there, and then you're paying it. So I don't see how you can charge one person and not the other person. I'm against this assessment. I don't like it. I never liked it, and that's my thoughts.
When they originally put that in, were they special assessed for the sewer lines going through there?
Always.
But I don't have that information.
I'm sure they were, because we all have been. So the people that owned the property actually had to pay special assessment on it one time. So they, like Denny said, they already paid, when they had a special assessment on it, they already paid the special assessment that the sewer put in, even though they weren't using it, but they paid. Whoever owned the property had to pay it. It's just common sense then. I mean, if they've already paid, and maybe not be using it, but.
Wait, if the city council wants to do away with tap-in fees, we will, but you'll be choking thousands and, millions of dollars out of the
You've
system.
always told us that you never charged anyway, so what was the big deal about it? Every time we ask the same question, you always come up with the same answer. We don't charge them anyway, so if you're not gonna charge them anyways, maybe we ought to do away with them.
Do away with it. I'm fine.
Do
away with it. And we don't charge it when they have to extend and invest a lot of money to get that extension done, and we want them to connect because we don't want them to have a septic field. In this case, it's readily available, it's right there, and they've not paid for the entire sewer system, which is a $100 million system out there that we're just gonna say, go ahead and connect to it. The rest of us paid for it. You can have it for free. It's up to you whether or not you want to charge for it. If you don't charge them for it, all the rest of us are paying for it, and they're not. So it's one person that hasn't even asked for a waiver.
Okay.
I'm in favor of charging the fee. Simple as that. That's it. Thanks.
I guess I'm intrigued by the notion that we need to keep track of whether a previous owner of that property paid a special assessment for the sewer pipe, and now we have somebody else developing it or building something on it who is going to take credit for that special assessment that was in the past. I mean, how would we know that? And then I can kind of see Denny's point. If somebody did pay for that special assessment to get the pipe in the ground, then somebody did pay. But I guess, do we know that? I mean, when I live on Washington Street up here, the sewer pipe's been in the ground a long, long time, long before I bought my property. And I'm hooked up to it, but if I weren't, does that mean that some previous owner of my property had paid a special assessment? Or was that sewer just put in and I mean, I don't know, that goes back a long, long ways. So reconstructing that history seems a little difficult. Maybe there's a way to find that out, but otherwise I would think that I do understand the rationale for charging the 5,000, you know, the tap-in fee. And basically everybody else has paid for a system and somebody's coming along who's never paid anything for it, then they probably ought to pay some of the capital cost of that. If it's been paid by someone else, then we should prove it. If we can't prove it, then I say charge it.
There you go.
As far as I know, ever since I worked for the city, every time we put a sewer in, there's special assessment went in. It was, I've never known it, you know, you go back in the 40s or something, I don't know, you know, but I've never known. When my folks lived on Ferry Street, when they put a storm sewer in, we were special assessed for the storm sewer. So I can't believe they put a sewer in without being special assessed. So,
well,
if they didn't ask for a waiver.
They have not, no. They were just inquiring as to the cost to connect to the sewer and the water system.
Well,
Did they faint when you told them it was $5,000?
No.
It's probably just part of doing business.
part of doing business.
But, you know, I pay my sewer fees. I also pay Ready to Serve, and I pay for the capital cost of that sewer, maintenance and replacement and all that through my usage of it.
Right.
And somebody hooking up today hasn't been paying that.
I got charged a hookup fee, even though I never hooked it up, because I bought the property, and they did Coyman Street. And when they did Coyman Street, they were trying to figure out where my lateral was. I told them, no, it's over on Taylor Street. And they going, how'd you get in Taylor Street? Then I ended up having to pay a tap-in fee for that, even though it's been there. And they go, how'd you get it in there? I said, I have no idea. I says, you think I'm gonna tap into Taylor Street and you guys don't know it? I mean, that's an emergency route for ambulances and everything else. How are you gonna do it? But I got charged for it, and that was when Ryan Cotton was here, and we got charged, me and Dave did, and I thought it was wrong. It was already done long before we even owned the property.
And the person that buys that piece of property pays more for that property because sewer's going through it. That piece of property is worth more money. So.
That's all right.
Okay, well, let's leave it here.
So Pat, did you get the feedback you were looking for?
There you go. You opened up a can of worms again.
An argument for it. All right.
No, I'll do research and see if there's a Robbins Road special assessment. And we could do a better job of defining the need for it. If you look at a property, and what causes me great stress about this is more the possibility that we get a property where there's gonna be a big multifamily development.
Yep.
And they're gonna develop 35 units in there, and they're expecting to pay $5,000 times 35 to build that, because they're gonna be dumping all that sewage into our system, and that's a big revenue generator. So if we get rid of that tap fee, that's gone, and the developers, those future developers, will make millions off this town, won't pay their fair share of the sewer system. You know, these one-off ones don't, you know, it's not a big impact, but when I think of these big projects that will likely come, we'll likely have some bigger developments, and they're gonna come in and argue, well, you've been waiving them and you got rid of it, so we're not gonna pay it. That's threatening to our future revenue stream for the sewer system. That's the only reason I really feel somewhat strongly about keeping it on the books.
And when I argued that point, that's what you said before. If there's a big development, you want to be able to charge them, or if a big, or like a big box, like Home Depot or somebody else comes in there, you'd like to be able to charge commercial people. Okay, you know, but this is residential property. This, you know, this is one residential property. So anyway.
Yeah, but you can't really say, well, if you're a big developer, you gotta pay the fee, and if you're just one poor schmuck, we'll give you a pass.
Well, either way,
right.
It's, you know, you either got to charge or not charge it with anybody.
They didn't ask questions.
It doesn't seem fair.
It's on the books still, and maybe
Okay.
next year at the
All
budget
right.
time, you'll take it out of there.
There you go. We'll do it at budget time.
All right.
We'll make sure we put it the last thing on the agenda that night, too. And I do just want to thank everybody, including city council and all the residents and every volunteer and everybody else that was a part of this event this last week. And usually we have a comment and we end on a very happy note, and this is one of those years where we're not. And exactly what happened is what we all dread. And I know it was weather-related and something beyond our control, but it's still tough to take. So, and I know that everybody did everything humanly possible to keep something like that from happening, do everything we can, but it's, you know, it's tragic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, general business call of the audience, one more opportunity for anyone to address council on anything that they would have on their mind. Thanks, Eric, for coming and sitting through this.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yep. All right. And if nobody wants to come and say anything, we will adjourn the meeting.
Now you know why VLP has their meetings at 4 o'clock.